Chapter 385, Zhao Ye, your sword! Voila! Might gushed out from his palm in the form of a blinding radiance, heading straight for Zhang Xian. Jizuan Realm, otherwise known as the 10,000 Ding Realm, was the final realm of the 9 Dawn of Fighters. At this realm, one's physical body and Jinqi would reach the very limits of a mortal, and the strength that one possessed would be unmatched by any Zongshi. Lin Ruotian was only a half Jizuan, but the strength he wielded was reminiscent of a huge river, ceaseless and overwhelming. Before his attack could reach Zhang Xian, the Jinqi he emanated had already reduced the surface of the stone floor to dust, as though a massive whip striking ceaselessly on it. Having driven the Jinqi in his body to the maximum capacity, a shrill call similar to a whistle sounded in the air. Harmonization of breath and blood, emanation of Jinqi. This is the distinctive trait of one who is about to reach Jizuan Realm. Mo Tianxue's face paled. He was the #1 expert among the Zongshi Realm pinnacle in Tianwu Kingdom, and he had a deep understanding of the Jizuan Realm. It was said that those who had reached that level would possess blood as thick as mercury, and when one drove one's Jinqi, the call of a whistle would sound in the air. All along, he thought that Lin Ruotian, who had achieved a breakthrough with Xianyuan Kingdom's help, would possess an unstable cultivation, making him of little threat. But upon seeing this sight, he realized that he couldn't be any more wrong. The other party's strength could be considered to be at the top even among the half-Zizans. Under his current state, there was a possibility of him breaking through the final barrier at any moment to reach the pinnacle of the fighter realm. It was no wonder why he, despite possessing the cultivation of half-Jizuan realm and the backing of Xianyuan Kingdom, chose to poison the guardian beast secretly. It wasn't that he was afraid of the vengeance from Tianwu royal family, but that he wanted to confuse them. By the time he reached Jizuan Realm, he would be able to crush all that stood in his way in Tianwu Kingdom easily. Even the Master Teacher Pavilion would be helpless before him then. If Guild Leader Lu hadn't forced him to show his hand, he could have taken that final step within several months. By then, he could simply openly demand the throne and no one would be able to stop him. Scary! Cold sweat drenched Mo Tianxue's back, and he trembled in fear. If not for this guild leader Lu charging straight at Lin Ruotian, Mo Tianxue would never have discovered this secret. It was laughable how he thought that as long as the guardian beast managed to survive, the other party wouldn't dare to make a move. Guild leader Lu won't be a match for him. Amidst his fright, he was filled with worry for the latter. Guild leader Lu might be powerful even among Zongshi Realm pinnacle experts, but he was still lacking in comparison to experts of Lin Ruotian's caliber. Putting everything aside, just in terms of strength, Lin Ruotian should have already reached 9,000 Ding. That would be more than sufficient for him to subdue guild leader Lu. Thinking so, he returned his attention to the duo's duel. Incredible! Facing Lin Ruotian's might face-on, Zhang Xian's face turned grave. At Zongshi Realm pinnacle, his strength had risen to 5,000 Ding, making him on par with an ordinary half-Jizuan. However, Lin Ruotian had reached the peak of half-Jizuan realm, making him a difficult opponent for Zhang Xian. At the first encounter, Zhang Xian could already feel heavy pressure from the other party's might. The other party's Jinqi gushed at him as though a burst dam, and he couldn't avoid it even if he wanted to. Thus, he could only forcefully face it head-on. Dang 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 dang. Retreating 7 to 8 steps backward, Zhang Xian's internals were slightly rattled under the immense force. Even though Zhang Xian knew that he was at a blatant disadvantage, he didn't panic. Instead, a slight radiance glowed from his eyes, and lines of insight energy slowly drifted into appearance. Eye of Insight! But soon, Zhang Xian frowned and shook his head in frustration. The gift from becoming a celestial master teacher was formidable, allowing him to peer into the flaws of a cultivator, but it came with a fatal flaw. The effects of the Eye of Insight were limited by the cultivation of its user. In other words, the Eye of Insight couldn't perceive the flaws of those stronger than him, making it completely useless against Lin Ruotian. Forget it. Flaws! Upon realizing that his newly earned talent was useless here, he immediately turned his eyes to his other gift. Who? His mind jolted, and a book appeared in the library of Heaven's Path. He quickly browsed through the book. A moment later, a slight smile crept onto his lips. No wonder his body feels so energetic, he consumed the blood of a spirit beast. Different from the eye of insight, the library of Heaven's Path could perceive the flaws in all cultivators, regardless of how high their cultivation was, as long as they displayed their battle technique before Jiang Xian. The strength, battle technique, and cultivation technique of the head of the Lin clan was recorded in detail in the book. The reason why he was able to achieve a breakthrough so quickly and achieve such overwhelming strength wasn't because he consumed some formidable pill, but because of the essence blood of a spirit beast. Spirit beast was an existence above that of savage beast. Even the weakest spirit beast possessed strength surpassing that of a Zhizuan realm. A drop of blood essence from this powerful life form could potentially induce a bloodline evolution in a half-Zhizuan savage beast, allowing it to successfully reach Zhizuan realm. It was through this that Lin Ruotian managed to reach half-Zhizuan from Zhongshu realm pinnacle. On top of that, under the effects of the blood essence, his Jinqi became violent as though a feral beast, and it felt ceaseless as though a river flowing relentlessly. How can I defeat him? Many of the other party's flaws were recorded in the library of Heaven's Path, but not only was the other party's stamina way above that of his violent nature Jinqi made it difficult to get close, needless to say, injure him. Upon crossing blows with an expert of this level, Jiang Xian suddenly realized that he was lacking in battle techniques too much. Against those who were stronger than him, his disadvantage became apparent. Be it Heaven's Path fist art or Heaven's Path movement art. All of them were centered around subduing one's enemy in a single blow. His moves could work wonders in close quarters, but if he couldn't approach the other party, it would all be for naught. On top of that, under the nourishment of the spirit beast's blood essence, Lin Ruotian's defense had become as strong as a savage beast. It was another question whether Jiang Xian would be able to defeat him even if he were to close in on him. Perhaps, even when Jiang Xian's Jinqi was sapped dry, he would only be able to injure the other party. Killing him seemed nigh impossible. In the end, the Heaven's Path battle techniques sapped one's physical stamina and Jinqi tremendously. Even though Jiang Xian had reached Zhongshu realm pinnacle, he was still severely limited by this flaw. Forget it, I won't use the Heaven's Path battle techniques for now. I don't believe that he can sustain his battle state for too long. Having seen through all of the other party's battle techniques through the library of Heaven's Path, while it would be difficult for Jiang Xian to subdue Lin Ruotian in a single blow, it was completely impossible for the other party to wound him as well. At most, he just had to slowly grind away at his opponent. Even if he had consumed the spirit beast's blood essence and reached half-Zhizuan, he didn't possess endless stamina. As Jiang Xian's thoughts were flying about the place, Lin Ruotian felt so stifled that he could spurt blood. The youngster's movements were bizarre and swift. The reason why he blasted his Jinqi out as soon as he made a move was simple. It was to prevent the other party from getting close to him and to hinder his movements. Initially, he thought that under his powerful offense, no matter how strong the other party could be, it would be impossible for him to hold on for too long. Yet he couldn't have imagined that. The other party was as slippery as a loach. It seemed as though he knew of the flaws in his movements and cultivation technique in advance, and with very slight movements, he easily stepped into the blind spots of his offense. His violent strength splashed at the surroundings, destroying the stone floor and blasting the air, but he couldn't even touch a single hair on the other party. In fact, even the emanation of his raging Jinqi failed to touch a hair on the other party. Instead of fighting, that fellow seemed as though he was on a vacation. All of Lin Ruotian's feints and sudden twists were completely useless. All of those traps that any other cultivators would have fallen for was totally ineffective on him. Every single movement of the other party seemed to be well calculated, causing all of Lin Ruotian's attacks to fall empty. It was as though grabbing onto a massive chopper and trying to hack at the only party, only to miss by several millimeters each time. Putting aside how the other party wasn't injured in the slightest, Lin Ruotian was already about to puke blood from exhaustion and frustration. Is this a game to you? We are fighting in a life and death battle here. We have already crossed over 100 blows, yet we haven't even touched the corners of each other's clothes yet. What the heck are you up to? This. Are the two of them really fighting? Why doesn't it seem like it? While Lin Ruotian was on the verge of going into a frenzy, the crowd was struck dumb by the sight. In a usual fight, two cultivators would collide with one another and cross blows. Even if the weaker side could hold on, it wouldn't be able to hold on for too long, especially when there was a huge disparity in strength. But, the heck! What was wrong with these two? No matter how they looked at it, it didn't seem like those two were fighting, but dancing. Most of the time, before Lin Ruotian could make a move, Guildmaster Lu would have jumped to the side and looked at the other party idly. Then, following soon after, the former's attack would land on the spot where the latter was standing before. In other words, even though Lin Ruotian was conducting the offense, in the eyes of the crowd, it seemed as though he was attacking wherever Guildmaster Lu was jumping from, as though Guildmaster Lu was leading him on. To retreat and advance with such harmony. Even professional dancers don't have such synergy. Could it be that the duo had already known each other, and they were familiar with the fighting methods of one another? But that couldn't be it. Seeing how Lin Ruotian was ready to bite at the other party at any moment, it was impossible for him to be so bored as to intentionally perform such a show before everyone else. It's Guildmaster Lu who is seeing through Lin Ruotian's movements in advance and messing with the other party's tempo, Principal Xie said with a grim look. Given that a teacher of their academy was wreaking havoc at the Lin clan, he had no choice but to rush over upon hearing the news. However, as soon as he arrived, this show immediately appeared before him, and a dizzy spell immediately struck him then. To see through the other party's movements, and evade to a safe zone before he could launch his offense, rendering the other party's raging might to fall empty. How in the world did he do it? Even 3-star master teachers didn't possess such fearsome abilities. Unless this Guildmaster Lu was Lin Ruotian's father or teacher, and was well versed in his offense, otherwise, it was impossible for him to make such precise judgments. But how could Guildmaster Lu be Lin Ruotian's father or teacher? This matter was completely impossible. He knew that Guildmaster Lu was a talented person, and bizarre matters seemed to shroud around him, but he didn't think that it would be to this extent. To force the attacks of a stronger opponent to fall empty each time, regardless of how profound the movements were. Just the thought of it made his head go blank. You! Do you dare to face me head on? Lin Ruotian bellowed. He was on the verge of exploding. The more he fought, the more frustrated he got. A head-on battle? Isn't that what we're doing now? Zhang Xian said leisurely as he continued dodging. You attack while I evade, I advance while you retreat. Since you've been facing me all this while, how is this not a head-on battle? Upon hearing those words, Lin Ruotian nearly spurted a mouthful of blood. He knew that if he were to continue arguing with the other party, he would definitely die of anger before the other party could do anything. Thus, flicking his wrist, a sword appeared in his hands. Then, with a slight jerk, ripples appeared in the air, as though a paper had been cut apart. Do you dare to face me in a weapon duel then? Weapon? Sure! Zhang Xian was frozen for a moment before the edges of his lips curved up. Glancing backward, he chuckled. Zhaoye, your sword! Chapter 386, Hall Master, save me! Zhang Xian had no weapons in his storage ring, and he gave the one which the elder of the Beast Hall gifted him to Zhaoye. Since the other party had taken out his weapon, Zhang Xian immediately turned to the lady and shouted. Sword? Zhaoye hesitated for a moment, but eventually, she still took out her sword and threw it straight toward Lu Laoshi. She didn't know why Lu Laoshi would ask to borrow her sword, but since she was here to help him, she didn't think too much about it. Voila! As soon as the sword was unsheathed, a cold light immediately shot out into the surroundings. In an instant, Zhang Xian's disposition immediately changed. For a moment, it seemed as though he had fused together with the sword in his hand, and his aura blasted straight into the heavens, threatening to slice even the blue sky apart. Ding 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 ding! Suddenly, all of the swords in the surroundings released a crisp buzz, as though greeting their sovereign. The buzzing harmonized together to form a pleasant and bright melody. Call of the myriad swords. This is the realm beyond that of sword intent, sword heart. Despite being in his 20s, Guildmaster Lu has comprehended sword heart. How did he do it? Everyone trembled violently in shock, and all gazes were immediately fixed on Zhang Xian. Weapon intent was only the start of a long path for those specializing in weapons. Those who had reached a higher level could comprehend the heart of weapons. Sword heart was the crystallization of one's deep comprehension in swordsmanship, and even experts who had transcended Jizuan were unable to reach that level easily. Yet, it had appeared from a Zhongshu realm pinnacle youngster at this moment, so how could they not be shocked? Sword heart, moving one's sword with one's heart, turning the tides with one's will. Every single movement is a sword art. Having comprehended such a state, there wasn't a single sword user who could match him at his cultivation realm. No, it isn't sword heart. At this moment, Pavilion Master Jiang arrived and he shook his head. Others might not know Guild Master Lu's true identity, but he was well aware of it. Given the talents Zhang Xian had displayed, if he were to allow Zhang Xian were to be killed by the Lin clan, the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters would definitely slaughter him. Thus, he rushed here as soon as he heard the news. However, seeing that Zhang Xian had the upper hand, he decided to watch by the side. No? Elder Zhu asked doubtfully. Call of the myriad swords, roar of the dragons, that was the distinctive trait of one who had comprehended sword heart. If that wasn't it, what else could it be? Depending on how deep one's understanding is, there are 3 levels to sword heart: primary, intermediate, and advanced. One who has comprehended sword heart will be capable of nourishing spirit into a sword, allowing it to harmonize with one, making it an extension of one's limbs in the truest sense. Even though Zhang Shi has managed to induce the call of the myriad swords, he has only managed to stir the aura of the swords. He hasn't completely grasped the spirit of the sword yet. Pavilion Master Jiang explained. Sword heart was a realm, as well as a state. It represented the spirit and heart within a sword. Even though Zhang Xian's level of comprehension towards swords was outstanding, going to the extent of even inducing the call of the myriad swords, his understanding of spirit was still too lacking. In fact, he hadn't even come into contact with it yet, so naturally, he couldn't be considered to have completely stepped into the level of sword heart. Then this is... After hearing Pavilion Master Zhang's explanation, Elder Shu asked doubtfully. If this wasn't sword heart realm, then what could this be considered as? It's partial sword heart realm. Pavilion Master Jiang answered with a grim expression. He has comprehended sword heart, but due to the limitations of his cultivation, he is still unable to grasp the idea of spirit completely. As long as he achieves a breakthrough in his cultivation, it's just a matter of time before he comprehends it. By then, he would be invincible among sword users. However, to reach partial heart realm despite not knowing what spirit is. How in the world did he do it? Even though Zhang Xian hadn't fully stepped into the level of sword heart, just reaching partial heart realm was sufficient to fill Pavilion Master Jian with astonishment. Many of the experts that had transcended Jizuan had spent their days observing and researching, only to be kept out of the entrance of the sword heart realm. Yet this fellow who didn't even know what spirit was, to the extent of not even owning his own sword, was able to reach this realm. Just the thought of it was sufficient to send one into a breakdown. If those who specially research swordsmanship but were unable to achieve a breakthrough in their entire life were to learn of it, would they die from frustration on the spot? Such powerful sword intent! Zhao Ye didn't know what sword heart was, but the sword intent that flurried from Lu Laoshi made her body tremble instinctively. It felt as though a pressure was pushing down on her, leaving her devoid of the courage to even draw her sword. The intimidation from a far stronger sword intent. Those who possess deeper understanding of sword intent could suppress those with a weaker understanding with their disposition. Suggesting the use of weapons is the most foolish decision you have made in your life. Grasping the sword in his hand tightly, Zhang Xian chuckled. Heaven's Path fist art and Heaven's Path leg art only consisted of a single movement, and it could only be executed in close quarters. However, Heaven's Path sword art was different. Having comprehended sword intent, every single move one made was a sword art in itself. Previously, when crossing hands with the other party, due to the might from the other party's jinqi, Zhang Xian was unable to attack easily, so he could only dodge continuously. However, with a sword in his hand, the situation had changed. He could fight with the other party on the same footing now. Voila! With a slight jerk, the glint of a sword shot across the air, and a radiant sword emanation shot out straight toward Lin Ruotian. What? Cried Lin Ruotian. The other party had been dodging his attacks before, causing all of his attacks to fall flat. He thought that using a weapon could widen the range of his attacks, making it more difficult for the other party to dodge, thus forcing him up a corner. How could he have known that the other party would have comprehended the heart of weapons? The heck! How could he match up to that? Even though his cultivation had reached half Shizuin, his comprehension of the sword hadn't even reached sword intent, needless to say, sword heart. With an awful expression, his body immediately scrunched together to avoid the other party's sword chi. Just as he was about to counterattack, he saw another white light flying straight toward his neck. The heck! Sensing the killing intent imbued into the attack, he knew that his neck would be severed if he were to face it head-on. Thus, without any hesitation, he immediately rolled away. Voila! The sword chi struck the ground and a deep gorge appeared. Rock fragments and dust flew in the air. Damn it! To think that a half-Shizuan expert like himself would be forced to roll to avoid an attack. Lin Ruotian's rage bubbled within. In the midst of his roll, his hand struck the ground to provide him momentum to leap up, but at that very moment, his hair stood on ends, and he instinctively rolled forward. Zila! A deep gorge appeared at where he was originally at. Having comprehended sword intent, one would be able to produce an emanation of one's sword and jinqi in the form of sword chi. Sword chi was incomparably sharp and indestructible by those of a similar cultivation realm. Even though Lin Ruotian was a half-Shizuan expert, he was still unable to withstand the might of it. Previously, he was able to force the other party to keep a distance through his deep and powerful jinqi. However, before the sharp sword chi, this technique became completely useless. If he were to try to do so, he would simply be cut through in the next instant. Lu Chengyu! Forced to roll twice consecutively, Lin Ruotian was anxious and furious. He roared furiously, but before he could do anything, another sword chi came flying straight toward him. Si La! This time, his reaction was a little slow. Feeling a slight chill, his loose robe was torn apart from the middle, and a few strands of his hair fell to the floor. Sensing the bone-piercing chill from the sword chi, he knew that his guts would be cut through if he were a moment slower. Knowing that this wasn't the time to speak, he continued rolling about. This is truly weird. In terms of fist art, Lu Laoshi could only dodge continuously, helpless before Guild Master Lin. But in terms of sword, Clan Head Lin couldn't even stand on his own 2 feet, forced to roll around the area. The Lin clan is reputed for its swordsmanship, and the head of the Lin clan is a famous sword master in the kingdom. And Guild Master Lu, as a physician and a normal teacher, doesn't even own a sword. Yet, to think that the sword master is more skilled in fist art, and the swordless physician is more adept in swordsmanship. What in the world is this? Staring at one another, everyone was dumbstruck at the sight before them. The Lin clan possessed a heritage of over several centuries in swordsmanship, and it stood at the very pinnacle of the field in Tianwu Kingdom. Everyone thought that Guild Master Lu would lose tragically upon seeing Clan Head Lin taking out his sword. No one could have imagined that there would be such a twist. To think that the sword master Lin Ruotian would be forced to roll around the field, unable to retaliate at all. Wasn't he way too weak? It isn't Clan Head Lin who is weak, it's that Guild Master Lu is too strong. A grave expression sat on Principal Lu's face. Under normal circumstances, even if he comprehended sword intent and sword heart, his cultivation is still only at Zongshi realm pinnacle. It should have been impossible for him to throw out sword chi one after another. On top of that, sword chi also has a maximum range. The further the attack, the greater the expenditure of one's jinqi. A few elders of Tianwu Academy nodded in agreement. Sword Qi was the emanation of Junqi. The further the attack, the greater the dissipation. Putting aside the weaker might of the attack, it took a huge toll on one's Junqi as well. Look, despite having thrown so many attacks, his Sword Qi still remains radiant and powerful, causing Clan Head Lin to be completely helpless before it. This shows that his Junqi is incomparably dense and pure. Principal Xia continued explaining. Only when one's Junqi reaches a certain level of density can one execute Sword Qi continuously without fearing it running dry. Only when one's Junqi reaches a certain level of purity will one be able to prevent one's Junqi from dissipating in midair, thus maintaining its might. Indeed! The crowd nodded. While the crowd was dumbstruck by the sight before them, Zhang Xian's sword was dancing in the air. Clan Head Lin, didn't you say that you want to compete with me in a weapon duel? What do you mean by rolling around on the floor? Bellowing loudly, Zhang Xian declared righteously. Do you dare to face me head-on? Pooh! Hearing those words, Lin Ruotian's anger clouded over his mind for a moment, causing him to be struck by a Sword Qi. A mouthful of blood immediately spurted from his mouth. Madness! This was what he'd said a moment ago. To think that the fellow would bring it up at this moment. Face you head-on? To the hell with that. I don't even have the strength to withstand your Sword Qi. How can I face you head-on? With his fist, he was still able to force the other party to dodge continuously, not daring to face him head-on. Why did he have to suggest the usage of weapon? In the end, he only made a mockery of himself. For the number one expert of Tianwu Kingdom, a half-Zhizuan expert, to be forced to roll around the floor. Hall Master Liao and the Great Herb King, hurry up and make a move. As long as you kill this fellow, I'll agree to any request of yours, and I'll even double it at that. After a moment longer, Lin Ruotian realized that if this continued on, it would just be a matter of time before he was killed by the other party's Sword Qi. Unable to hold it in any longer, he immediately bellowed. The elders in the clan were already crippled, so his final hope was on Hall Master Liao and the Great Herb King. As the master of the Poison Hall, Liao Sun was a poison expert which granted him the ability to kill even experts above his level. Before him, Guild Master Lu's Sword Qi would be completely useless. All right, remember your words. I'll settle things with this man for you. Hearing the other party's promise, Liao Sun nodded in satisfaction and walked out. Hall Master Liao? Great Herb King? Could they be the Red Lotus City's Great Herb King and the Poison Hall's Hall Master Liao Sun? Someone suddenly shouted, and everyone's faces turned pale. A commotion broke out. Chapter 387. The unreliable Hall Master. The Poison Hall was the fear of all ordinary cultivators. Poison came in many different forms, making it hard for a person to guard against it, no matter how strong they were. Initially, when Liao Sun walked out with the Lin clan, no one paid him any notice. However, upon hearing the shout, the crowd suddenly realized that he was the newly appointed Hall Master of the Red Lotus Range branch. This matter wasn't well known, but some of the clans with a wide intelligence network still managed to grab hold of the news. As the Hall Master, the other party surely possessed the strength of a 2-star pinnacle poison master. Needless to say, a Zhongshu realm pinnacle cultivator, even a Zhizuan realm expert would have to worry against his poison. To think that the Lin clan had dealings with such a person. Their hearts immediately turned cold. Guild leader Lu might be powerful, but poison was something much too fearsome. Even the slightest contact could potentially render an expert helpless. Guild leader Lu is probably done for. Indeed. According to the rumors, Hall Master Liao even managed to kill a Zhizuan realm primary stage expert. Given that guild leader Lu is only at Zhongshu realm pinnacle, how can he withstand his poison? To think that the Lin clan would have dealings with the Poison Hall. How could they? After ascertaining the identities of Liao Sun and the others, even though the crowd was furious at the Lin clan's doing, they couldn't do anything at all. Before the other party's poison, their overwhelming numerical advantage didn't mean a thing at all. I must say, Vang Shi, if the Poison Hall really makes a move, I'll immediately send a request to the headquarters to overturn the entire Red Lotus Range. A glint flashed across Pavilion Master Zhang's eyes. Master teachers promoted the equality of education. While the poison hall was a feared existence, it wasn't without its value. Thus, as long as it didn't go too far, the Master Teacher Pavilion wouldn't go to the extent of eradicating it. However, if this Hall Master Liao Sun dared to lay his hands on the genius Zhang Shi, then he shouldn't blame him for getting nasty. He would ensure that the headquarters would lead an army to destroy his entire nest. Sword intent, sword chi, and heaven's path sword art? In contrast to the crowd's anger, Zhao Yu's face turned pale, and her body trembled non-stop. Even though Lu Laoshi didn't explicitly execute the heaven's path sword art, Zhao Yu was still able to catch some semblance of it. This was definitely the move that Grand Teacher taught her. How could this man know the sword art that Grand Teacher taught her? Could it be that? A thought suddenly flashed across her head, and she immediately turned to look at Wang Ying. As soon as the eyes of the duo met, the other party nodded. Really? Zhao Yu's face paled further. Only at this moment did she understand why the other party borrowed her sword, and why his face was so bizarre when he learned of her duel with Mu Xueqing. It turned out that Lu Laoshi was Zhang Laoshi. Teacher, careful. Upon realizing this fact, she clenched her fists tightly together. She had absolute confidence in her teacher's strength, but the other party was a poison master, skilled in utilizing what that was naked to the human eye. Could teacher really withstand it? Anxious, she immediately turned her gaze forward. Your name is Lu Cheng, right? I have to admit that you're a genius. Walking forward, Liao Sun glanced at Zhang Xian with composure. However, it's a pity that you met me. He shook his head regrettably. The other party was indeed talented, but what was the use of it? He shouldn't have made an enemy out of the Lin clan. Only if the Lin clan became the sovereign of Tianwu Kingdom would the Poison Hall be able to come out from hiding. Liao Sun wouldn't allow anyone to foil his plans. With a flick of his wrist, a bottle of powder appeared in his palm. Then, driving the Jinqi in his body, he prepared to scatter this at the other party at any moment. Who? Seeing that Liao Sun was about to make a move, Zhang Xian kept his sword. As soon as the relentless sword chi attack came to a stop, Lin Ruotian recovered and hurriedly dashed toward Liao Sun, hiding behind his back. Kill him with your poison! He roared excitedly and savagely. It was fortunate that he invited Hall Master Liao here today. Otherwise, even if the Lin clan wasn't destroyed, its prestige would have fallen into the gutters. Don't worry, leave it to me. Twisting the bottle of powder in his hands, Hall Master Liao was ready to strike at any moment. Teacher. Anxious, Lu Chong dashed forward, but before he could reach Zhang Xian, the latter shook his hands, turned to the Great Herb King, and smiled. Great Herb King, now that you're cured of your contract goo, your guts sure have inflated. How dare you bring Liao Sun out to cause trouble? Contract goo? The Great Herb King, who was looking at the commotion, narrowed his eyes, and he almost fell weakly to the ground. Liao Sun didn't know the true identity of Physician Bai, but he did. The genius master teacher of the Master Teacher Pavilion, Zhang Xian. He was the one who cured him of his contract goo back then. Very few people knew of this matter. Given how the other party was able to speak of it so confidently, could it be that? One must know that he had personally witnessed the disguising ability of that Zhang Shi. Could this Lu Laoshi be one of his disguises as well? It was no wonder. He thought that it was too much of a coincidence for two grandmasters of the way of medicine to suddenly appear in Tianwu Kingdom. So they were actually the same person. It doesn't make a difference even if you know the Great Herb King. Liao Sun didn't pay the other party's words any heed. Roaring furiously, he prepared to throw the poison powder in his hands straight at the other party. Hall Master, stop! Flustered, the Great Herb King immediately charged forward to stop Liao Sun. What's wrong? Liao Sun was taken aback. The Great Herb King had always been a calm person. Why would he suddenly act in such a manner? Hall Master, you mustn't make a move. He. The face of the Great Herb King distorted, and he looked as though he was on the verge of tears. Hurriedly sending a telepathic message, he explained the situation. "He is Senior Granduncle." "Senior Granduncle?" Hall Master Liao's kneecaps suddenly caved in, and he nearly kneeled on the spot. Senior Granduncle. That was a formidable figure who even Envoy Gu Mu had to show utmost respect to. The reason why he could successfully become the Hall Master was also due to the help of this Senior Granduncle. And this man before him was him? He nearly spewed a mouthful of blood. "Are you sure?" With a trembling body, he hurriedly asked telepathically. If the other party was really that man, and he tried to use his poison powder to kill him. Once Envoy Gu Mu learns of it, he would skin him alive. "There's no doubt about it." Nodding profusely, the great Herb King was just about to continue explaining when the voice of the young man before them sounded once more. "Hall Master Liao, where's Gu Mu? Has he tamed the lava beast completely yet?" "Put on." If he still wasn't too sure before, upon hearing these words, Liao Sun suddenly felt an urge to kneel down and beg for forgiveness. Only 3 people knew of the lava beast: Gu Mu, him, and Senior Granduncle. Given that Gu Mu had returned to Xianyuan Kingdom, and he had never told anyone about it, the man before him had to be Senior Granduncle. There was no doubt about it. "Hall Master Liao, don't listen to the nonsense of that fellow. Hurry up and kill him." Seeing Hall Master Liao hesitate, Lin Ruotian hurriedly urged him worriedly. However, before he could finish his words, he suddenly saw a jade bottle fly toward him. Pun! Before it could reach him, the bottle exploded, causing the poison powder to scatter all over him. Upon contact with his skin, an intense itch suddenly plagued Lin Ruotian's entire body. At the same time, he felt as though his meridians were being torn out. The intense pain made him burst into rage. "Hall Master Liao, you!" he roared furiously. "What are you up to? I told you to kill Lu Cheng, what are you doing throwing it at me?" "Pa!" Before he could recover from his astonishment, a stinging pain struck his face. Someone had slapped him. His body swayed, and he fell to the ground. Large mouthful of blood spewed out from his mouth, and a few white teeth could be seen within the red puddle. "Vermin, I'll kill you!" Just as he was in a daze over who would be so daring as to lay his hands on him, he saw Hall Master Liao charging straight up to him with crimson eyes clouded with rage. Pung 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 puh. Hall Master Liao was truly incensed. If he had really made a move on Senior Granduncle today, putting aside his seat as the Hall Master, he might even die tragically. It was all the fault of this vermin. He would never be able to quell the rage in his heart if he didn't kill this vermin at this very moment. "What? What is going on?" Looking at the infuriated and frenzied Hall Master Liao, the crowd, who was intending to step in and help, were stunned. This was especially so for Pavilion Master Jiang and Principal Xie. Wasn't Hall Master Liao specially invited by clan head Lin to help? Didn't he arrogantly declare that he would kill guild leader Lu? Why would he renege on his words the next moment and start pummeling Lin Ruotian? Clan head Ji, who was hiding at the very back, nearly died from a stroke upon seeing the sight. Can anyone tell me what the heck is going on? Why would Hall Master Liao, who had confidently assured Lin Ruotian a moment ago, suddenly become so mad? That was Lin Ruotian, a half-Shizuan expert. To be pummeled like that. The heck? It is fortunate that I didn't step forward just now. Otherwise, I'd be probably in a worse shape. Lin Ruotian's strength was originally above that of Liao Sun, but caught off guard and poisoned, how could he still match up to the latter? Completely helpless before the latter's pummeling, his face swelled up, and the remaining traces of humanity was beaten out of his face. Enough! Seeing that Lin Ruotian was on the verge of dying under the pummeling, Zhang Xian hurriedly waved his hands. Yes! Liao Sun stopped and stood in front of Zhang Xian with a fawning smile on his face. That! Senior Granduncle, please pardon my blindness to fail to identify your greatness. Where did that bunch of nonsense come from? Go and wait by the side. Frowning, Zhang Xian reprimanded. Why would the men from the Poison Hall come here instead of staying peacefully at their Red Lotus range? To dream of usurping power, They were tired of living. Yes. Seeing that the other party had no intentions of pursuing this matter, Liao Sun heaved a sigh of relief, and he quickly walked to the side, not daring to say a word at all. Hall Master Liao went to stand by the side, as though an obedient student, after being reprimanded by teacher? Mu Xueqing and the others blinked, and their hands tugged on their hair in frenzy. They thought that Lu Laoshi would surely lose in the battle against the Lin clan, thus they begged with the elders in their clans to support him. Yet, before these supporters they had brought could do anything, Lu Laoshi had already sent the entire clan to its knee. Even the half-Shizuan, Lin Ruotian, wasn't a match at all. They could comprehend it if Lu Laoshi was strong, but this master of the poison hall was a figure that instilled fear in all. Why would he suddenly become an obedient rabbit before their teacher? Obediently following what their teacher asked him to do. And why would he pummel Lin Ruotian? Doubts flashed in the eyes of the crowd. Damn it, damn it! Just as everyone was perplexed, a roar sounded. Looking forward, Lin Ruotian had struggled to his feet, and a savage light glowed from his eyes. Lu Qing, you are the one who forced me. I didn't want to use this because it's a huge waste, but, since you don't intend on letting me off, I'll have all of you die here. Roaring furiously, two surge of Jinqi shot out from his two hands. 1. A mist suddenly drifted into appearance, and a formation was activated. This. The Grade 3 pinnacle killing formation that Princess Consort Lin Long left behind back then? This time. We're really done for. And Mo Tianxue's body trembled. Chapter 388. Formation destroying kick in order to protect her own family. That legendary princess consort once requested for a Grade 3 pinnacle formation from Xianyuan Kingdom's Formation Master Guild to protect the Lin clan residents so that the clan could be everlasting. It was precisely because of this that even though the guardian beast had managed to reach the Jizuan realm, and Mo Tianxue didn't dare to do anything out of fear. Initially, he was still praying that perhaps no one here was capable of activating this formation. How could he have known that not only was Lin Ruotian capable of activating it, he was even able to do it in an instant, thus shrouding all of them in it. This was a Grade 3 pinnacle killing formation. Different from the confinement formations, those who were trapped in the formation would be attacked by all kinds of bizarre attacks. At Grade 3 pinnacle, even a Jizuan realm expert could easily die under the onslaught of the formation. Haha, all of you die. As soon as the formation was activated, it seemed as though countless menacing sharp blades had appeared in the air, threatening to fall from the skies at any moment and eliminate all within the area. Lin Ruotian's eyes reddened, and he roared in excitement. This formation was the one which his daughter, Lin Long, left behind to guard the Lin clan. It could only be used once, so Lin Ruotian was determined not to use it unless the Lin clan was in a desperate situation. He was unable to cope with Lu Qing already, and now that Hall Master Liao had gotten involved as well, he knew that it would be impossible for him to withstand their combined might. Thus, without any hesitation, he immediately activated it. Didn't you all want to kill me? All right then, I'll have all of you die here. A Grade 3 pinnacle formation was a formation that could trap and kill even a Jizuan realm pinnacle expert. No matter how powerful you are only a Zhongsha realm cultivator. Death is all that awaits you. Finished. To think that I would die due to my curiosity. The Lin clan actually had this kind of trump card. No wonder the royal family was reluctant to make a move on them. At least we are dying to a powerful formation like this. Despair appeared on the faces of the people trapped in the formation. Formation Master was an occupation at the forefront of the upper 9 paths. The might of a formation in operation was unimaginable. Once trapped, they could only wait for their deaths. Pavilion Master Jiang, you have some understanding of formations. Can't you bring us out? Someone shouted. Everyone immediately turned their gazes to Pavilion Master Jiang, as though seeing their savior. On top of being a 2-star master teacher, Jiang Shu was a 2-star formation master as well. It was possible that he could have a solution to this crisis. I am helpless as well. This formation is way beyond my level of understanding. Shaking his head, Jiang Shu smiled bitterly. He was just a 2-star formation master. There was nothing he could do in the face of a formation of this level. Then we're really doomed. Hearing that even Pavilion Master Jiang was helpless before it, the crowd felt despair. Haha, only a 3-star formation master is capable of deciphering a grade 3 pinnacle formation. You all? Don't even dream about it. Watching their panic and despair, Lin Ruotian howled frenziedly. However, before he could finish his words, a voice suddenly interrupted. Only a 3-star formation master can decipher this formation? I don't think that's necessarily the case. The voice was exceedingly calm, and it contrasted greatly to the panic in the surroundings. Hurriedly turning their gazes over, they saw that the one who spoke was Guild Master Lu. The youngster simply shook his head, walked forward, and kicked into empty air. 1. The air suddenly froze, and the fleeting mist, as well as the blades above them, suddenly stopped. The formation had been stopped. As though he had only done something insignificant, Zhang Xian clapped his hands and said, See, didn't I just decipher it? You! The smile on Lin Ruotian's froze, and his eyes slowly widened. His body swayed, and he nearly failed to catch his breath. That was a grade 3 pinnacle formation. Even 4-star formation master wouldn't be able to stop it as casually as he did. To do it with a single kick. The heck! Where is the fairness in the world? Back then, when Grand Elder Lin Tao said that this Guild Master Lu was capable of stopping formations with a kick, he thought that it could just be a coincidence. Perhaps the other party was familiar with the confinement formation used to trap the gold-tailed lion. But this one. Even Lin Ruotian himself only deciphered it halfway. The only reason why he could activate it was because he had control over the core of the formation. If he could lay out such a formation himself, he wouldn't have hesitated to activate it earlier. For a physician, an amateur, to stop it with a single kick. Lin Ruotian's body convulsed, and he nearly tore out his hair. This. The formation stopped? It was stopped with a single kick? Pavilion Master Jiang also felt his head turning blank. Even a Jizuan realm expert could easily die in a grade 3 pinnacle formation. To stop it with a single kick. Painter, apothecary, beast tamer, master teacher, physician, and it turned out that he was a formation master on top of that. Brother, you should just tell us what there is in the world that you don't know so that we can prepare ourselves mentally. Another kick again? Mo Tianxue and Mo Yu glanced at one another and shuddered. Was this really a formation that could kill even a Jizuan? Why did it seem no different from a toy? How in the world did he do it? Right, I have to escape. While the crowd was overwhelmed with shock, Lin Ruotian finally recovered. Gritting his teeth, he immediately darted into the residence. No matter how foolish he might be, it was already clear that the tides had changed. The best he could at the moment was to preserve his own life. He had to inform the princess consort of this matter as soon as possible so that she could send her men over. Otherwise, the Lin clan would truly be destroyed today. Who? Darting into the residence, he immediately triggered the formation within. A mist immediately floated into appearance, shrouding the entire Lin clan. As the base of the Lin clan, it was impossible for it to be guarded with just a single formation. However, given how easily the strongest formation laid had been broken, all this formation could do was to delay his enemies. But of course, this little time meant a lot to him under the current situation. You wish to escape when you haven't apologized yet? Seeing the other party scrambling back into the residence, Zhang Xian shook his head. I've already said it. If you don't apologize, I'll beat you until you apologize. Lu Chong, charge in! Returning the sword back to Zhao Ye, Zhang Xian chuckled softly. He walked up to the residence and kicked at a certain spot once more. 1. The formation shrouding the residence stopped. The teacher and student entered. Wait for me. With the departure of the duo and the bizarre gazes of the crowd, how could Hall Master Liao Sun and the Great Herb King dare to remain here? They immediately dashed into the residence as well. As the commotion came to an end, silence loomed over the entrance of the Lin clan residence. Looks like the Lin clan is done for. Looking at the convulsing elders who were lying on the floor and Lin Ruotian who had escaped without any hesitation, the crowd was still in a daze. Back then, when their children and juniors pleaded with them, they thought that this Lu Laoshi was being a little too rash arguing with the Lin clan. Only now did they realize how hilarious their thoughts were. Single-handedly, he managed to crush the Lin clan who dominated the capital. This was something they could have never imagined in the past. What in the world was that fellow? How could he be that powerful? Teacher. Contrary to the shock of the others, the eyes of Mu Xueqing and the others were glowing, and they clenched their fists in excitement. All that lingered in their minds was a voice that kept shouting, "He is my teacher." My teacher managed to destroy formations with a single kick and vanquish the Lin clan which dominated the capital. My teacher, with his powerful sword qi, was able to even render a half-Shizuan expert helpless. How lucky and proud they were to have such a teacher. As their hearts trembled in agitation, their eyes suddenly fell on a few other people. They were Zhao Ye, Xing Yang, and group. Zhao Ye, I know that Zhang Shi is formidable, but is he capable of unleashing sword qi that rendered even a half-Shizuan helpless and stop a grade 3 pinnacle formation with a single kick like Lu Laoshi? With her hands behind her back, Mu Xueqing's eyes shone with excitement. Zhang Shi was incredible, but he had only managed to reach Zhongshi realm a few days ago. On the other hand, not only was there Lu Laoshi a Zhongshi realm pinnacle expert, he even managed to subdue the number 1 expert of Tianwu Kingdom, Lin Ruotian. The title of the number 1 expert in the kingdom rightfully went to him. How your Zhang Shi be a match for such a person? Lu Laoshi is indeed incredible. Zhao Ye replied calmly. Zhao Ye, why would you? Seeing Mu Xueqing's gleeful look, Sheng Yang and the others were infuriated. They thought that Zhao Ye would refute the other party, but never in their dreams did they think that she would admit it directly. This caused their faces to flush in anxiety. Don't worry. Lu Laoshi may be incredible, but our Zhang Laoshi isn't inferior in any way. Knowing that Lu Laoshi and Zhang Laoshi were the same person, there was no need for them to argue over this matter anymore. Since teacher had intentionally hidden his identity, not even notifying them of the matter, it wasn't Zhao Ye's place to expose him then. Harumphing coldly, Zhao Ye turned around. Boom! A powerful aura surged forth from her. The strength belonging to a Zhongshi realm intermediate stage rushed at Mu Xueqing and the others as though a massive wave. Zhongshi realm intermediate stage? Wasn't she still at Pixue realm a few days ago? How did she jump 2 realms all of the sudden? This is the result of Zhang Shi's guidance? Sensing the aura from Zhao Ye, the crowd fell into a commotion once more. Due to the uproar from the duel between Zhao Ye and Mu Xueqing, the crowd knew that she was only at Pixue realm 2 days ago. To reach Zhongshi realm intermediate stage within 2 days. This rate of advancement was way too fast. You! Mu Xueqing's eyes narrowed. Initially, she was indignant when she lost the second duel against the other party, and she thought that she would be able to defeat the other party now that she had reached Tongxian realm. Never in her wildest imaginations did she expect that the other party would have improved as well, and for it to be even more drastic. She had skipped past Tongxian realm to reach Zhongshi realm intermediate stage directly. This. How could she fight against this? Could Zhang Shi's guidance truly be that incredible? That's nothing much. 5 days ago, Lu Chong was only Dingli realm primary stage, but he has already reached Zhongshi realm intermediate stage already. Meng Tao harumphed. Advancing from Dingli realm primary stage to Zhongshi realm intermediate stage in just 5 days? Before the crowd could recover from their shock, another astonishing news blasted at them once more. Lu Laoshi and Zhang Shi, aren't the two of you too monstrous? It would already an incredible feat to induce an advancement of one's cultivation by a small stage in just 5 days. Yet your students leap through several realms in just a few days. Looks like this Lu Laoshi is as talented as Zhang Shi. Indeed, the two of them are on par with one another. They're both incredible geniuses. Actually, I think that Lu Laoshi is more incredible. Inducing a growth from Dingli realm primary stage to Zhongshu realm in 5 days is clearly much more difficult than inducing a growth from Pishua realm to Zhongshu realm in 2 days. More importantly, he possesses a powerful cultivation. No matter how talented Zhang Shi is, his true strength is only at Zhongshu realm primary stage. Actually, I think that Zhang Shi is more formidable. Just by his feats of bashing through the various stages in the master-teacher examination and breaking all of the records already made him superior to most talents out there. More importantly, he is still young, so he still has a bright future before him. Amidst the crowd, many loyal fans of Zhang Shi and Lu Laoshi appeared, and they began to quarrel with one another. Neither side was willing to give in to the other. Escaping in a panic, he soon arrived at a sealed chamber. There was nothing but a white wall in the room. With a flick of his finger, a droplet of fresh blood fell into the aperture on the wall. 1. A bright light shone, and the wall was activated. It was something similar to the wall of dilemma in the Physician Guild and the wall of pill formulae in the Apothecary Guild. Communication Wall. Chapter 389. Kong Shi's personal letter. A unique formation had been laid out on the communication wall, allowing one to transmit messages to one another instantaneously over long distances. The wall of pill formulae and wall of dilemma operated by the same concept as well. The cost of this object was extremely high. Even though it was only a wall, a grade 3 pinnacle formation was laid out on it. It was through the formation that one could transmit the message from one wall to another. The cost of a single wall was so huge that even the Tianwu royal family couldn't afford it. Only some of the more esteemed guilds were equipped with it. No one could have imagined that there would be one in the Lin clan as well. In order to protect her family, Princess Consort Lin Long was even willing to pay such an immense price. Picking up a brush, he clenched his jaws and wrote a line of words on it. The Lin clan has been besieged by the scoundrel, Lu Qing. Lin Lang and father are severely injured. Require immediate aid. Who? A bright light shone, and the words slowly faded. After which, Lin Ruotian heaved a huge sigh of relief. A savage glint flashed across his eyes. Lu Qing and Tianwu royal family. I want you all to pay for all what has happened today. Beside the imperial palace of Xianyuan Kingdom, there was another massive palace. It was the East Palace, otherwise known as Crown Prince Palace. It was where the Crown Prince of Xianyuan Kingdom lived. In a room at the very corner of the palace stood a white wall. It had been quiet for a very long time, but today, a bright light shone, and a few words appeared on it. Something bad happened. Hurry up and inform Her Highness. The face of the guard in charge of the wall warped in panic, and he hurriedly instructed the servants. Other people might not be aware of the purpose of the wall, but he was well aware that it was linked to the old home of the princess consort. For it to be activated all of a sudden, not to mention with such a message, it was clear that something huge had happened. Soon, an elegant-looking lady walked over. Xianyuan Kingdom's princess consort, Lin Lang's elder sister, Lin Long. Father, brother! Seeing the words on it, the lady's body shuddered, and a malicious aura flowed out from her. She was extremely concerned about her family. She didn't think that such a situation would occur since it hadn't been long since she had left Tianwu Kingdom. Lu Cheng? Who is this Lu Qing? Bellowing furiously, resentment flowed through Lin Long. Hurry up and get General Liang here. Yes. The guards hurriedly walked over. General Liang, Liang Qingming, was the general under the command of the Crown Prince. As a Jizun realm advanced expert, he was in charge of the security of the East Palace. Only the Crown Prince and the Princess Consort could issue him commands. Soon, a middle-aged man walked over. His black dress-up and sharp eyes gave him an extremely cold appearance. With just a single glance, shudders would instinctively run down one's spine. Your Highness was looking for me? Bowing politely, Lian Qiming clasped his fist. General Liang, pick 2 experts to accompany me to Tianwu Royal City, Lin Long said. Tianwu Royal City? Liang Qingming asked doubtfully. That's right. My Lin clan has been trampled by others, and my younger brother and my father are severely injured. Make sure to do it fast. Lin Long instructed anxiously. No, 2 experts aren't sufficient. You shall go with me now. Only with your strength will I feel assured. Me? Liang Qingming hesitated. However, the Crown Prince hasn't returned yet. Shouldn't I ask for his permission before leaving? What permission? If you don't hurry, my Lin clan will become history. Lin Long flung her sleeves furiously. Yes. Knowing that the Crown Prince doted greatly on Her Highness, if her clan were to be destroyed, he would be implicated as well. Thus, without hesitating for too long, Liang Qingming nodded. If you're in a rush, we should ride on the Crown Prince's gold-scaled lightning beast. Possessing a strength of Jizuan Realm intermediate stage, it is capable of traveling at high speed. Tianwu Royal City might be slightly far from here, but on it, we can arrive in just 2 days. All right. Lin Long nodded. As a Jizuan Realm savage beast, the Crown Prince's gold-scaled lightning beast was capable of traveling several 10,000 li in a single day. They might make it in time if they travel on it. Have Grand Master Beast Tamer Zhou follow us, and get him to drive it as fast as he can. Lin Long instructed once more. Yes. Liang Qingming turned around to make preparations. In less than an instant's time, a massive savage beast appeared in the courtyard. Lin Long dived into the room on its back, and with a flap of its wings, the savage beast soared into the skies. Pun! Pun! Slowly advancing forward, Zhang Xian broke through 7 to 8 formations before reaching the room where Lin Ruotian escaped to. Following behind Zhang Xian, Liao Sun got a clear glimpse of the strength of this young man. Regardless of which formation it was, with a single look, he was able to stop it with a kick. This was no longer something that could be described with the word fearsome. It was fortunate that he reacted decisively and turned against the Lin clan on the spot. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know how he died. You sure caught up fast. Knowing that they would appear, there wasn't the slightest panic in Lin Ruotian's eyes when the door was opened. Instead, with savagery on his face, he hissed. However, even if you manage to catch up, do you dare to kill me? I've already informed the princess consort of this matter, and her men will arrive soon. As long as you dare to touch a single strand of my hair, not only will you die, the entire Tianwu kingdom will be buried as well. You mean that if we don't make a move on you, the princess consort will let us get away scot-free? Seeing the confidence on the other party's face, Zhang Xian shook his head helplessly. The grudge was already picked, and even if Zhang Xian allowed Lin Ruotian to get away, the other party wouldn't let him off. He thought that the other party would be hesitant after hearing his words, but all the other party showed was indifference. Lin Ruotian was taken aback. Lu Chong, I'll leave it to you to exact your vengeance. After you're done, look for me at the academy. Liao Sun, you stay here to support him. Zhang Xian instructed, not bothering with the arrogant Lin Ruotian. Yes. Lu Chong and Liao Sun nodded. All of the powerful elders had been defeated, and the rest had either escaped or scattered. There were no longer any powerful figures in the Lin clan that were a match for Lu Chong and Liao Sun. Having settled the matter here, Zhang Xian slowly walked out of the Lin clan residence. At this moment, the crowd outside had yet to scatter. Upon seeing Zhang Xian, admiration glowed on their faces. I am truly thankful for all of your support. He knew that these people were gathered under the effort of his students. Even though they didn't do anything, the fact that they were willing to offend the Lin clan at this crucial timing to back him up made him emotionally indebted to them. Lu Laoshi, Guildmaster Lu, is being too polite. We didn't do anything at all. The crowd immediately bowed, their faces flushed in embarrassment. They intended to help Lu Cheng, but in the end, the other party managed to wipe out the Lin clan single-handedly. I, Lu Cheng, am one to repay favors. How about this? I will conduct a lecture here for everyone in gratitude for all of your help. Given the sentiments they had shown, Zhang Xian couldn't remain unmoved. A lecture? Delighted, everyone's eyes shone in excitement. Even though this guild master Lu wasn't a master teacher, he was a Zhongshu Realm pinnacle expert who had comprehended Sword Heart. His lecture would definitely contribute greatly to their cultivation. The core of cultivation lies in one's heart. Without wasting any time, Zhang Xian started speaking. His voice touched the hearts of the crowd, shaking their souls. In order to prevent his true identity from being revealed, he didn't utilize impartation of heaven's will this time. Even so, there were many who managed to achieve a breakthrough in the midst of his lecture. There were at least 100 people who came to back Zhang Xian up, and there were 7 of them who managed to achieve a breakthrough. To induce a breakthrough in the crowd in a single lesson, as expected of the most talented master teacher in Tianwu Kingdom. Seeing this sight, Pavilion Master Jiang felt impressed. Despite being a 2-star pinnacle master teacher, he wasn't capable of this feat. The other party's explanation was detailed and simple. Concepts that were often difficult to grasp became exceedingly simple under his explanation. It felt as though the cultivation of others were a huge ball of wool, whereas he had managed to sort it out neatly into strand after strand. Under his explanation, it felt as though they were given a glimpse into the essence of cultivation. Under such circumstances, it would be difficult for them not to improve. Incredible. To think that the lecture of Lu Laoshi isn't inferior to Zhang Shi at all. Indeed, I found myself a new idol today. Hearing Lu Laoshi's lecture, Jingyang, Yuan Tao, and Lu Yang fell into a trance. In the past, they had always thought that Zhang Laoshi was the greatest teacher in the world, and that all other teachers were trashed before him. However, at this moment, they realized that there was a much larger world outside the one they knew. Zhang Laoshi was formidable, but it would be hard for him to triumph over this Lu Laoshi. It was laughable that they had always thought that the other party was unworthy of his reputation. Do you think that Zhang Laoshi's lesson is better, or that Lu Laoshi's lesson is better? Seeing the expression of the group, Zhao Yu shook her head helplessly and asked with a bizarre look. The both of them are good. With a scarlet face, Xingyang replied. He wanted to say that Zhang Laoshi was better, but the lesson of this Lu Laoshi wasn't inferior to their teachers in any way. Forget it, you all go figure it out yourselves. Since teacher didn't say anything, Zhao Yu couldn't be bothered to explain either. Turning around, Zhao Yu and Wang Ying left together, leaving behind 3 dumbfounded guys behind. After completing the lesson, Zhang Xian returned to Tianwu Academy. Not too long later, Lu Chong walked up to him, and with slightly reddened eyes and a trembling body, he knelt to the floor. All of the words that he had wanted to say seemed to converge into a single one. Teacher. It was because of his teacher that he had a chance to exact his vengeance, and found the purpose of his existence. It was because of teacher that his parents were able to rest peacefully in the earth, and that he will not be ashamed to meet them when he finally reunites with them. Finding such a good teacher was the best thing that the heavens had given him. Stand up. On the classroom, Zhang Xian looked at him gently. You should be able to tell me why the Lin clan had to eradicate your clan now, right? Even though Lu Chang's elder sister had castrated Lin Lang, the Lin clan, in consideration of their reputation, shouldn't go to the extent of destroying an entire clan consisting of more than 100 members. Most probably, there was another more compelling reason. Back then, in the royal palace, Missouri Tianxue and Mou were around, so Lu Chong didn't mention the matter. The duo didn't realize anything, but Zhang Xian still noticed that something was amiss. Teacher, it's true that the Lin clan didn't destroy my Chu clan because of that matter. It's because of an heirloom in my clan. Without any hesitation, Lu Chong immediately revealed the truth. Given how much his teacher had done for him, he had decided that he wouldn't hide anything from him. Heirloom? Zhang Xian frowned. Yes, it's an ancestor's handwritten letter, Lu Chong replied. Ancestor's handwritten letter? Zhang Xian was perplexed. Why would the Lin clan want a handwritten letter from your ancestors? This letter was most probably a letter Lu Chang's ancestor left to his offspring, but why would the Lin clan fight for it, even going to the extent of wiping out an entire clan? The handwritten letter of our ancestor indeed isn't worth much, but within the letter is the handwritten reply from Kong Shi, Lu Chong explained. Kong Shi's handwritten words? Zhang Xian was taken aback, and his head turned blank. Chapter 390 Spirit Blood Body Nourishment Formula. Emperor Kong Shi was the founder of the Master Teacher Pavilion, the number one person in history. The value of his handwritten words was invaluable. To think that his handwritten reply would be in a letter of the Chu clan ancestors. Putting aside the Lin clan, even the entire Xianyuan kingdom would go into a frenzy over it. All of Zhang Xian's doubts were immediately answered as well. Lu Chong had tried to hide himself, changed his name, and gone to the extent of pretending to be a mute, but given the immense influence the Lin clan wielded in the capital, they were more than capable of tracking him down. It was impossible for Lu Chong to live beneath their noses for 2 years without realizing a thing. From the looks of it, it seemed like the Lin clan had intentionally left him alive so that they could use him to find the handwritten letter. They probably knew about Lu Chong's mediocre talent as well, and knowing that he was incapable of exacting vengeance, they left him be. They couldn't have imagined that Lu Chong would meet with Zhang Xian, and that the insignificant figure whom they thought nothing of would bring ultimate doom to their clan. Your ancestors were acquainted with Kong Shi? After comprehending the situation, Zhang Xian continued asking. Why would Kong Shi write his ancestor a reply for no reason? I'm not too sure about the details, and I haven't seen the letter myself either. My father has only vaguely told me about it in the past. Lu Chong continued. The letter currently isn't in my old clan or on me. It's hidden by my ancestors in the depths of a mountain range. If teacher wants it, I can hand it over to you. This handwritten letter was left behind by the Chu clan's ancestors. Even when facing impending death, the Chu clan was unwilling to hand it over to the Lin clan. Yet, Lu Chong was willing to hand it over to his teacher without any hesitation. Forget it. Even though Kong Shi's handwritten words are valuable, it's of no use to me. Zhang Xian shook his head. Kong Shi's handwritten words might be an unparalleled treasure to the others, to the extent that they would kill one another over it, but to Zhang Xian, it was nothing at all. No matter how formidable the letter was, could it match up to the golden page of the Book of Heaven's Path? To Zhang Xian, given that it couldn't contribute to his cultivation, it was just something he could sell for a lot of money. Besides, it belonged to his student. For this, Lu Chong's entire clan was destroyed. Zhang Xian hadn't stooped down to the level of vying with his student over his fortune. I've been rude. Hearing his teacher's words, Lu Chong's face flushed. He had seen his teacher's sincerity toward him, and it should have been clear that he didn't do it for the ancestor handwritten letter. To bring up this matter seemed as though Lu Chong was sounding Zhang Xian out instead. Choosing not to dawdle on this problem, Zhang Xian glanced at Lu Chong. He had left right after conducting his lecture back then, so he didn't know how Lu Chong chose to deal with the Lin clan. I didn't kill them. Instead, I had Hall Master Liao cripple their cultivation entirely. Lu Chong replied. Even though he was adamant to exact his vengeance so that his kin could live in peace, he knew that he would be letting them off too easily if he were to just kill them. The Lin clan had been arrogant in the past few years, and they had offended many people. Given that their cultivation had been crippled, and that they no longer had formations to protect them, even if Lu Chong didn't kill them personally, this powerful clan would soon disappear in the tides of history. On top of that, by choosing not to kill them, he could protect his teacher's honor as well. Hearing how Lu Chong dealt with the Lin clan, Zhang Xian nodded in satisfaction. After undergoing this incident, his student had matured. If he were to kill the entire Lin clan, that would be granting them relief. Crippling their cultivation and allowing them to live on in such a manner was probably much more painful to them than death. Teacher, this is what we confiscated from the Lin clan. Lu Chong took out a storage ring and presented it to Zhang Xian. Being the previous number one clan in Tianwu Kingdom, it possessed many treasures in its residence. As it would be a huge waste to leave those lying in the residence for others to grab, he chose to store them all into his storage ring and bring it to his teacher. As for the ring, he took it off Lin Ruotian's finger. Zhang Xian took the ring. He wasn't interested in his student's possession, but he didn't feel any guilt taking the possessions of the Lin clan. After all, the Lin clan would have done the same if they were in his place. Dripping a droplet of blood to claim possession of the ring, Zhang Xian protruded his consciousness into the ring, and a vast space immediately appeared before him. It was much larger than his previous ring, and it was around the size of 100 meters. As expected of the Lin clan, so many gold coins. Quickly sweeping across the area, gold coin was stacked into towering mountains, and its quantity definitely numbered over 1 billion. But of course, the most valuable items weren't the gold coins, but the various formations, weapons, and pills. Spirit stones? Quickly sweeping across the area, Zhang Xian's eyes suddenly lit up. In a corner of the ring, Zhang Xian saw a few spirit stones being placed in a jade box by the corner. A small amount of spiritual energy was emitting from it. Counting them, there was a total of 10 of them. It was even more than the amount he got from the Tianwu royal family. With so many spirit stones, I should be able to reach at least half Shizuan. Zhang Xian chuckled gleefully. While half Shizuan realm was just a small realm above that of Zongshu realm pinnacle, the spiritual energy requirement was even more than the entire Zongshu realm added up together. Zhang Xian was still frustrated thinking about where he could look for spirit stones when the Lin clan solved his problems. I should check if there are any cultivation techniques or secret manuals. Zhang Xian continued browsing through the various objects in the area. To him, there were only 2 things that were important to him now. Firstly, spirit stones. Secondly, cultivation techniques and secret manuals, and naturally, the greater the quantity, the better it was for him. There seems to be a lot of books on formations in here. Soon, Zhang Xian's eyes fell upon a huge collection of books on formations placed on bookshelves. As a distinguished clan of formation masters, their collection of such books probably exceeded that of even the capital's formation master guild. Quickly taking them into his collection, Zhang Xian's eyes fell on the final bookshelf. As I thought, there are cultivation technique manuals on half Jizuan realm and Jizuan realm. On the very end of the bookshelf was where the most powerful Lin clan heirloom cultivation techniques and battle techniques were placed. Among them were half Jizuan and Jizuan realm cultivation technique. However, the number was severely lacking. There were only slightly more than a dozen half Jizuan realm manuals and 2 Jizuan realm manuals. Even so, it's still worth collecting. Other people would be delighted to see these cultivation technique, but they were of little use to Zhang Xian. Even so, every manual still counted. He decided to look at their contents first. Every book that his finger came into contact with would form an identical book in the Library of Heaven's Path. Compile! Then, he compiled the dozen or so half Shizuan book together to form a single one. With a single look, he fell speechless. There were too few correct sentences, so the technique formed couldn't be cultivated at all. Forget it. Putting aside achieving a breakthrough, Zhang Xian might even die if he were to cultivate this technique. Knowing this, Zhang Xian immediately lost all interest. What is that? Just as Zhang Xian was about to retract his consciousness from the storage ring, he saw a small jade bottle placed at the corner of the ring. It wasn't too big, and it was inconspicuous compared to all of the objects in the storage ring, but it was made of the top quality, spirit-harnessing jade, which carried the attribute of warmth. With a swift movement, the jade bottle appeared in his hand. Instead of opening it, Zhang Xian uttered in his head, "Flaws!" A book immediately appeared in the Library of Heaven's Path. Flipping it open, it wrote, "Forged by a 7mo craftsman using spirit-harnessing jade, it has the ability to prevent the decomposition of blood and dissipation of spiritual energy. Stored within it are 2 drops of blood essence from a grade 1 spirit beast, steel-armored dragon." Spirit beast blood essence? Zhang Xian's eyes lit up, and he nearly jumped up from agitation. When he first fought against Lin Ruotian, the Library of Heaven's Path clearly detailed that the other party had consumed spirit beast blood essence, granting him overwhelming vitality. Zhang Xian thought that the other party would have already consumed all of the blood essence. He didn't think that there would still be 2 drops left. Seemed like his daughter, the princess consort, had given him 3 droplets, but given the limitations of his physical condition, he only managed to absorb 1. Even so, it was sufficient to grant him the strength equivalent to a half Shizuan realm pinnacle. There should be an absorption method in here as well. Different from spirit stones, spirit beast blood essence had a special method that one had to use to absorb it so that it would fuse with one's body and augment it. Since the head of the Lin clan had succeeded in doing so, he must possess a suitable absorption technique as well. Harboring such thoughts, Zhang Xian started rummaging through the entire storage ring, and soon, he found a secret manual hidden in the corner. Written on top of it were 5 big words. Spirit Blood Body Nourishment Formula. Flaws. Collecting it into the Library of Heaven's Path, he immediately flipped through it, and he fell speechless once more. This Spirit Blood Body Nourishment Formula seemed incredible, but the flaws in it numbered at several hundred. How in the world did Lin Ruotian manage to cultivate this technique? Right, there's quite a few books on physical body cultivation in Tianwu Kingdom's book collection vault. Perhaps, if I were to mix all of them together, something good might turn out. Just as Zhang Xian was intending to dump this book back onto the shelves, a thought suddenly popped into his mind and he froze. He had collected all of the books in Tianwu Kingdom's book collection vault, and there was a sizable collection of physical body cultivation technique manuals in there. Many of these cultivation techniques were superior to that he saw in Master Lu Chen's residence back then. After walking out from the book collection vault, Zhang Xian immediately went over to the Lin clan to seek justice for Lu Chong. As such, he hadn't had the time to look through it yet. Summoning all of physical body cultivation technique manuals from the library, he overlapped them together with the Spirit Blood Body Nourishment Formula. Compile! Who? A brand new book appeared before Zhang Xian. He anxiously flipped it open, and the contents appeared before him. By training one's physical body and tempering it with one's Jinqi, one's physical body could gain the might equivalent to one's Jinqi, or perhaps even higher than that. However, it is difficult to reach higher heights in one's physical body cultivation. By using the blood essence of spirit beast to nourish one's body, one could gain the fearsome physical abilities of a spirit beast. A complete cultivation technique was detailed in the manual. It worked. Briefly browsing through it, Zhang Xian clenched his fist tightly. Just as he guessed, the Spirit Blood Body Nourishment Formula could be compiled with the other physical body cultivation technique manuals to form a new Heaven's Path technique. I'll call it Heaven's Path Golden Body 2 Dan. Zhang Xian immediately gave it a name. The Heaven's Path Golden Body that Zhang Xian compiled back in Lu Chen's home was powerful, but as his cultivation progressed, its effectiveness was steadily going downhill. On the other hand, this physical body cultivation technique he had just compiled was clearly far superior to the previous Heaven's Path Golden Body. One has to rub the Spirit Beast blood essence on one's acupoint to absorb its strength and augment one's physical body. Once one succeeds, one would gain immense fighting power. Remembering the contents, Zhang Xian immediately opened the jade bottle, poured out the 2 drops of blood essence, and following the method detailed in the secret manual, he rubbed it on his acupoints. Tzzzzzzzzzzz. As soon as the blood essence came into contact with Zhang Xian's skin, a blazing heat immediately seared his skin. Spirit beasts were existences that surpassed the Fighter 9 Dawn. If one tried to forcibly absorb spirit blood without a suitable absorption technique to go with it, not only would one be unable to improve, one might even die on the spot. Chapter 391. These Little Bastards. In a sense, the Heaven's Path Golden Body 2 Dan was the most correct method in absorbing the blood essence. As though a plant that had thirsted for several years, Zhang Xian's body greedily absorbed the energy within the spirit blood. After an unknown period of time. Boom! With a loud bang, as though something had exploded, and Zhang Xian's physical body strength had broken through a bottleneck and reached a brand new level. Who? Breathing out a mouthful of turbid gas, Zhang Xian realized that his entire body was revitalized, and his skin was more compact and smooth. At the same time, his appearance looked slightly more dashing, and his figure became slightly closer to the golden ratio. He had succeeded in cultivation Heaven's Path Golden Body 2 Dan. The 2 drops of Spirit Beast blood essence which he had rubbed on his acupoints had been absorbed cleanly by his body. Time to test my strength. Knowing that it was hard to determine the growth in his physical strength, Zhang Xian walked over the strength-measuring rock pillar not too far away, raised his fist, and struck it. Kacha! The rock pillar shuddered, and it was nearly broken into pieces. A line of numbers slowly floated into appearance. 9999 ding? Just a step away from reaching 10,000? Jizuan realm was also known as 10,000 ding realm. Given that Zhang Xian's strength had reached 9,999 ding, it meant that he was invincible against all those beneath Jizuan realm. It is a pity that the amount of spirit beast blood essence is too lacking. If I have several dozen more, I might be able to reach Jizuan realm pinnacle. Zhang Xian lamented. Even though he had mastered Heaven's Path Golden Body 2 Dan, he knew that his physical strength hadn't reached its cap yet. As long as he had sufficient blood essence, he could continue to cultivate the technique and his strength would continue to rise swiftly. But even so, Zhang Xian was already contented. Lin Ruotian was stuck in Zhongsha realm pinnacle for a very long time, and even after using the energy harnessed within the spirit beast's blood essence, he only managed to achieve a Jinchi strength of around 9,000 ding. On the other hand, Zhang Xian's breakthrough was in his physical body, and his physical body strength had reached 9,999 ding. The difficulty in doing so was several folds above that of the former. One's Jinchi could run out in the midst of a battle, but physical strength was constant. On top of that, physical body cultivators possessed nearly invincible defense in comparison to those of the same cultivation realm, allowing them to match with 3 to 4 of Jinchi cultivators easily. But of course, this was assuming that there wasn't a huge disparity in the skills and battle techniques of both sides. With this kind of strength, I'll be able to defeat a Jizuan realm primary stage cultivator easily, and even when facing a Jizuan realm intermediate stage expert, I won't be completely helpless. Previously, when Zhang Xian's strength was still at Zhongsha realm pinnacle, he was already able to easily defeat the half-Jizuan realm Lin Ruotian, who possessed a strength of more than 9,000 ding. Given that he had managed to achieve such a huge leap in his strength, naturally, his fighting prowess rose significantly as well. At Jizuan realm primary stage, one's strength would finally break through the 10,000 ding mark. Then, for every increment within the cultivation realm, one's strength would increase by another 10,000 ding, thus granting one the strength of 40,000 ding at Jizuan realm pinnacle. 9999 ding of physical body strength, coupled with 5,000 ding of Jinchi strength, added up to a total of 14,999 ding. With such strength, Zhang Xian was able to rival against Jizuan realm intermediate stage experts. Seeing the raise in his strength, Zhang Xian heaved a huge sigh of relief. Previously, Lin Ruotian had told him that he had informed Princess Consort Lin Long of the matter, so it was highly likely that she would send her men over. Even though Zhang Xian acted nonchalantly on the surface, he was quite concerned over this matter. Given that he had managed to achieve a huge leap in his strength, he could finally relieve himself of the huge worry in his heart. Heaving a long sigh of relief, Zhang Xian suddenly remembered that Lu Chong was still in the room. Quickly extracting his consciousness from the storage ring, he turned around to look for Lu Chong, only to see the youngster staring at him with mouth agape and eyes widened into huge circles. The current Lu Chong was experiencing a slight breakdown. As soon as he passed the Lin clan's storage ring over, his teacher had started to go into a daze. After a long moment, he suddenly leaped up, as though suffering from a stroke, and struck the strength-measuring rock pillar. Then, the pillar displayed 9,999 ding of strength. What in the world happened? His teacher had only whipped out a jade bottle, dabbled some crimson liquid on his body, fell into a daze, and his strength immediately surged. Not only did he achieve a breakthrough, he even nearly reached Jizuan realm. How in the world did he do it? All along, Lu Chong thought that he had improved swiftly through the poison tempering, but after seeing his teacher, he realized that it wasn't a big deal at all. Other people would die of old age trying to reach the half-Jizuan stage, but his teacher only had to fall into a momentary daze to do so. And not to mention, that daze brought him right to the peak of half-Jizuan realm. If word were to spread out, those self-proclaimed geniuses would probably die of shame. This was no longer the feat of a genius, but a monster. Just as he was overwhelmed by shock, he saw his calm teacher looking at him with glowing eyes. Right, do you still have any enemies? Why don't I help you get back at them as well? If not, help me ask Mu Xueqing and the others if they have any. After which, Zhang Xian started counting on his fingers. If there are a few more such clans, I'll surely be able to obtain a lot of treasures and secret manuals. If so, I'll have truly struck it rich. Lu Chong. Teacher, aren't you an enlightened expert who have seen through material possession? Aren't you a genius who couldn't care less about those crude objects? Exacting vengeance for others, to confiscate wealth? Why do you seem more and more unlike an enlightened expert, but a greedy ruffian instead? In an instant, Lu Chong felt that he had to reevaluate his opinion of his teacher. But it was no wonder why Zhang Xian was so excited. Initially, he only went against the Lin clan because he felt indignant for Lu Chong. Who knew that he would suddenly attain such a huge wealth? Putting everything aside, if he could find a few more drops of Spirit Beast's blood essence through the Heaven's Path Golden Body to Dan, he would be able to break through the bottleneck constricting his physical body and reach Shizuan Realm. By then, even if he were to head to Xianyuan Kingdom, there would be nothing for him to fear. He would be able to stand tall and mighty there too. While waiting for the other party to respond, the sound of someone knocking on the door suddenly echoed in the classroom. Is Lu Laoshi inside? Lu Chong, you should rest by the side first. Bringing back his authority as a teacher, Zhang Xian waved Lu Chong away and sat upright. Then, he replied impassively, Is it Sun Laoshi? Please enter. He could recognize the voice of the person outside. It was Emohongi, who was disguised as Sun Qing. It seemed like the poison in his body had been neutralized, and he had recovered from its effects already. Jiya! As soon as Zhang Xian said those words, a figure immediately rushed in and glared at Zhang Xian furiously. With a questioning tone, he bellowed, Lu Laoshi, you should know that your tea is poisoned, right? I only knew after that incident. Honestly speaking, I'm a victim here too. Seeing the other party's look, Zhang Xian consoled. Someone must be trying to kill me, and you only happened to step right into it, and accidentally consumed the poison tea that such a matter happened. Don't worry, I'll definitely look into the matter and return your grievance. Redress my grievance? Victim? Victim my head. Hearing Zhang Xian's words, Emohongi's hair stood on ends, as though a cat who had his tail stepped on, and he erupted into rage. The heck, you are a victim! In the end, didn't you end up well? As the number one genius, not only did I get poisoned, I even fell into the fecal drain. More importantly, redress my grievance? How in the world are you going to redress my grievance when it's your student who poisoned me? What's wrong? Seeing the other party getting angrier and angrier, Zhang Xian was perplexed. No one likes to get poisoned, and honestly speaking, how could I know that you would drink the tea from my room? You. All right. Knowing that this fellow was indeed a victim, and he was ignorant of the matter, Emohongi suppressed his rage and harumphed. There's no need for you to investigate. I already know who the culprits are. Who? Frowning, Zhang Xian's face turned grave. He had been contemplating over this matter for a very long time. He didn't offend anyone in this identity of his, so why in the world would someone want to poison him? If he knew who the culprit was, he would definitely pursue the matter. It's Xingyang and the others. I saw them do it personally last night. Oblivious to Zhang Xian's thoughts, Emohongi harumphed coldly. Xingyang? Just as Zhang Xian was thinking about how he should teach the other party a lesson, Emohongi's words caused his to stagger, and he nearly fell to the ground. It was his own students who poisoned him? What in the world is going on? Zhang Xian was shocked, but it didn't take him long to deduce the entire matter. His complexion immediately darkened. Those little bastards. Roaring furiously, Zhang Xian stood up abruptly with rage blazing within him. The students of the other teachers were so obedient, yet what was with the students he taught? When they weren't fighting or causing trouble, they were poisoning their own teacher. The heck? If I don't teach them a lesson, I am not Zhang Xian. Zhao Ye, what's going on? Given how arrogantly Mu Xueqing acted just now, why didn't you teach her a lesson? In any case, it's Lu Laoshi, and not her, that's formidable, so what rights does she have to be acting so gleefully? On the way back to the residence, Xinyan kept questioning Zhao Ye in displeasure. Zhang Laoshi's reputation has been completely pushed down by that Lu Laoshi. As his student, even if you don't speak for your own teacher, how can you compliment the opponent's teacher? Is there something wrong with you? Teach her a lesson? I think you should think about how you can avoid punishment first. Seeing how the fellow before her had yet to grasp the situation, Zhao Ye replied helplessly. Avoid punishment? What punishment? Xinyan asked doubtfully. At the same time, Lu Yang and Yuan Tao also looked over curiously. They were sharp-witted, but regardless, they were only 15 to 16-year-old children. There were many things which they needed someone to point out to them before they could understand it. Wang Ying, you should explain the situation to them. I'll try to think about how we can apologize to teacher. Zhao Ye grabbed her forehead in frustration. Her original intention was to guard her teacher's honor and bring eminence to him, yet she did manage to make her teacher's name known, but as soon as his true identity was declared in public, he would definitely become a laughingstock. What in the world was this? To think that such a matter could happen. She truly didn't know how to face Zhang Laoshi in the future. Wang Ying, what's wrong? Sensing that this was a huge matter, Xinyan looked at her anxiously. This. Wang Ying's face turned red. I suspect that Lu Laoshi is Zhang Laoshi in disguise. Lu Laoshi is Zhang Laoshi? Xinyan and the others were stunned. Indeed. When fighting against the head of the Lin clan, Lu Laoshi executed Heaven's Path movement art and Heaven's Path leg art. I've seen it clearly, and there's no mistake about it. On top of that, the technique that he used after borrowing Zhao Ye's sword is Heaven's Path sword art which Grand Teacher passed down to Zhao Ye. Furthermore, given how he treated us. Seeing the disbelieving looks of the trio, Wang Ying explained. Lu Laoshi is Zhang Laoshi? Then, the person we poisoned is Zhang Laoshi? And we even scolded him so happily. Yuan Tao, Xinyan, and Lu Yang trembled in shock. Their faces turned pale, and they were on the verge of breaking down. If that was true, then what in the world did they do in the past few days? Teacher had done so much for them, yet all that was on their minds was how they could do him in. The trio felt so stifled that they might spew blood. I want to go to Tianwu Academy to apologize to teacher. After a long moment, Xinyan slowly said with a pale face. I'll go with you. Same here. Yuan Tao and Lu Yang hurriedly nodded. All right. Upon making a decision, the group hurriedly headed toward Tianwu Academy. Knowing that they had to face it sooner or later, Zhao Ye and Wang Ying also tagged along with them. Dong! Before they could reach the academy, the sound of a deafening bell rang. It's from the Master Teacher Pavilion. The group couldn't help but turn toward the source of the ringing. Chapter 392, Envoy from the Headquarters. This sound is the bell from the Master Teacher Pavilion to gather all Master Teachers. Something huge must have happened. Zhao Ye's face tightened in worry. The bell from the Master Teacher Pavilion wouldn't sound for no reason, and when it did, it meant that something urgent and important had occurred. Let's go over to the Master Teacher Pavilion and take a look first. If teacher is in the capital, he'll surely rush over as well. Frowning, Zhao Ye instructed. The bell demanded for the presence of all Master Teachers. If Lu Laoshi was truly Zhang Laoshi, he should rush there upon hearing the bell as well. On! Xinyan and the others nodded. Thus, the group started heading toward the Master Teacher Pavilion. This is the assembly bell? Who rang it? Standing at the entrance of the Lin clan was Pavilion Master Jiang, who was still in a slight trance after Zhang Xian's lecture. Upon hearing the sound, he was taken aback. Not everyone was qualified to ring the bell in the Master Teacher Pavilion. In the entire Tianwu Kingdom, only the Pavilion Master and the other two-star Master Teachers wielded the rights to do so. However, given that the three of them were here, what in the world was going on? Something urgent must have cropped up. Let's hurry back to take a look. A grave look appeared on Elder Zhu's face. On! Pavilion Master Jiang nodded. Without any hesitation, he led the group of master teachers gathered here back to the Master Teacher Pavilion as quickly as possible. Let's go over and take a look as well. And Mo Tianxue and the others also followed them back to the Master Teacher Pavilion. The Master Teacher Pavilion was the foundation of a kingdom. Without their support, putting aside the fact that the kingdom's tier might be lowered, it would also make the kingdom more prone to attacks. At this moment, the sound of the bell reverberated through the entire capital, attracting the attention of countless people. Even Zhang Xian and Mo Hongyi were taken aback. The Master Teacher Pavilion is summoning us. Let's go over as well, Mo Hongyi said grimly. On! Zhang Xian nodded. Teacher. Lu Chong hurried forward. Find Mu Xueqing and the others, and bring them to the Master Teacher Pavilion. Knowing Lu Chang's intentions, Zhang Xian immediately issued him some instructions. Initially, they had agreed on finishing the examination tomorrow. However, since that Mo Hongyi had recovered, and he was going to head there anyway, Zhang Xian didn't mind finishing the examination today so that he could be promoted to a 2-star master teacher. Not daring to dawdle, Pavilion Master Jiang and the others rushed straight back. It didn't take them too long to arrive at the Master Teacher Pavilion. As soon as they stepped into the guild, an apprentice quickly walked up to them. Pavilion Master, Elder Shu. What happened? Jiang Shu looked at him with a deep frown sitting on his forehead. The headquarters sent 2 envoys over. Seeing that there isn't a single master teacher here, they instructed me to ring the assembly bell. The apprentice explained. Envoys from the headquarters? Getting Pavilion Master Jiang's heart skipped a beat. Bring me over quickly. Upon walking into the main hall, he saw 2 elders seated at the very top of the room. You're Jiangshu? Before Jiangshu could reply, an elder stroked his beard and introduced themselves. I am Su Fan, and this is Ling Yuhing. We're from the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Master Teacher Pavilion. Su Fan? Ling Yuhing? Pavilion Master Jiang was stunned for a moment before a jolt shot through his entire body. Disbelief shone in his eyes. The 4-star Master Teachers of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Su Shi and Ling Shi? Even though Jiang Shu had never been to the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's capital before, Su Shi and Ling Shi were names that all Master Teachers within the Myriad Kingdom Alliance were familiar with. Could they be those 2 legendary figures? Why would they visit Tianwu Kingdom personally? Hee hee! That's us! Chuckling, the duo nodded slightly. Their movements and words weren't excessive, and they exuded an extremely peaceful and tranquil feeling. The crowd didn't feel the slightest bit of pressure or intimidation from them. 4-star. Upon hearing their words, the faces of Elder Zhu and the others turned pale, and they nearly fainted on the spot. They were legendary figures who were said to possess the capability to turn stone into gold, and the destructive might to crush mountains and split rivers. Under such rumors, the group subconsciously felt that they lived in a completely different world from the duo. Yet to think that there would come a day where they would be talking harmoniously. Initially, they were still slightly intrigued about the ringing of the assembly bell. This bell was usually used for emergencies, and only the 2-star master teachers had the right to ring it. As 4-star master teachers, the duo was more than qualified to ring the assembly bell. However, as 4-star master teachers, the duo was indeed more than qualified to ring the assembly bell. There's no need to get nervous. The purpose of our visit is to look for Zhang Xian. Seeing the stiff expressions on the crowd, Su Shi chuckled lightly. His voice was as gentle as a spring wind, and subconsciously, the stiffened bodies of the crowd relaxed, and their tension disappeared. Impartation of heaven's will. Incredible! Sensing the visible changes in their bodies, the crowd was filled with awe for the duo. To dispel their nervousness with a single word, surely they would be able to render them powerless with another. The might of a 4-star master teacher was indeed fearsome. Zhang Xian? Heaving a sigh of relief, Pavilion Master Jiang asked doubtfully. Zhang Xian had broken innumerable records of the Master Teacher Pavilion. Even though Jiang Shu didn't report the matter to the headquarter had a way of looking into such matters. Given the outstanding results, it would be difficult for Zhang Xian to not attract any attention. May I know if Zhang Shi is here? Su Shi looked around the room. Reporting to Su Shi, Zhang Xian is currently in the midst of his 2-star Master Teacher Trust level test, so he isn't here. Pavilion Master Jiang hurriedly replied. He isn't here? Then bring me the record crystal of his Master Teacher examination. I want to take a look at the situation. Upon hearing that Zhang Xian wasn't around, Su Shi issued another instruction. Yes. Not daring to keep such esteemed guests waiting, Pavilion Master Jiang immediately issued the orders, and a master teacher quickly rushed out. Soon, the record crystal that had recorded Zhang Xian's examination was brought into the main hall. Su Shi and Ling Shi glanced at one another. Then, Su Shi stretched his hand forward to slightly tap on the record crystal, and the scene of the examination back then immediately appeared. House of Trust, Supporting Occupation Pavilion, Puppet Hall, Cultivation Technique Ocean, and Unerring Pavilion. Seeing the young man undertake the tests one after another, the initial calmness of Su Shi and Ling Shi slowly faded, and eventually, just like the many others who were present that day, it transformed into shock. Soon, after watching the entire proceedings, the duo glanced at one another, and they could see the incredulity in each other's eyes. Despite teaching his students for just a couple of days, he managed to induce a trust level of 85 in them. At the start of the examination, his soul depth was only 5.1, but in the blink of an eye, it increased all the way of 10.1, scoring 130 points in the Supporting Occupation Pavilion where the highest possible score should have been 100, inducing the harmonious chiming of the 100 bells in the Cultivation Technique Ocean, and getting it to submit with a bellow, uncovering 30 flaws in the Unerring Pavilion, reaching Zhongsha realm in just a few moments. Despite witnessing his feats personally, they couldn't help but doubt that they were dreaming. Where in the world did this fellow pop out from? How did he manage to achieve such outstanding results? Reporting to Su Shi and Ling Shi, I, Jiang Shu, can use my reputation as a master teacher to guarantee that Zhang Shi didn't even know the proceedings of the examination beforehand. All of his records were made on the spot, and the record crystal hasn't been tampered in any way. Seeing the disbelief in their eyes, Jiang Shu hurriedly explained. We're still able to tell whether the record crystal has been tampered or not. Su Shi nodded. As a 4-star master teacher, he was more than capable of telling with a single glance whether the person before him was lying or not, and whether the record crystal had been tampered with or not. This was precisely the reason why he found the entire situation inconceivable. Of the kingdoms beneath the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, there didn't seem to be a single one who was as incredible as this Zhang Xian. But of course, if this wasn't the case, they wouldn't have rushed from the Alliance to such a remote location upon receiving the news. Tell us about the background of this Zhang Shi. Returning the record crystal, Su Shi probed. Yes, this Zhang Shi comes from Tianxian Kingdom. After organizing the information on Zhang Xian in his head, Pavilion Master Jiang replied. Talent wasn't the only factor required for one to become a master teacher. One had to have a clean background as well. It wasn't too difficult for him, as the head of the Master Teacher Pavilion, to look into Zhang Xian's identity and background. Currently, he's a 3-star painter, 2-star beast tamer, and an apothecary and physician exceeding 3-star. Naturally, he doesn't have the emblems for the latter two yet. Even though his skills have reached the required level, his cultivation is still much too lacking. He's currently at Zhongsha Realm Pinnacle, and he has comprehended the partial heart realm of Sword Heart. Jiang Shu recounted. Every single point that he brought up caused the shock on Su Shi and Ling Shi's faces to deepen, and eventually, the duo became completely numb to his achievements. However, a doubt slowly sprouted in their minds. How in the world did a fellow who originated from such a remote location be skilled in so many occupations? On top of that, to possess such incredible talent as a master teacher? Upon thinking of this, Su Shi couldn't help but raise his doubt. I was perplexed over this matter initially as well, but eventually, I realized that it's because Zhang Shi's teacher is formidable. Jiang Shu explained. It's very likely that he's a 4-star master teacher as well, or perhaps, even surpassing that level. Oh? The faces of the duo immediately turned grave. What's the name of his teacher? Yang Xian. Yang Xian? Su Shi and Ling Shi frowned. They knew quite a few 4-star and 5-star master teachers, but they had never heard of this name. This Yang Shi is currently my teacher as well. Sensing their doubts, Jiang Shu started to recount how he met Yang Shi, and how he eventually acknowledged the other party as his teacher. With just the slightest guidance from him, you were able to tame the Crimson Tiger. On top of that, he was able to tell the flaws in your cultivation in that short fight between you and the Crimson Tiger? Su Shi widened his eyes in shock. Su Shi was also capable of those 2 feats. But he definitely wasn't able to do it as quickly and easily as the other party did. Given how easily that Yang Shi did so, not to mention, during the fight between the Crimson Tiger and Jiang Shu, he was still on the back of an aerial savage beast. The other party's eye of discernment was simply way too formidable. That's right. Jiang Shu nodded. Honestly, he was filled with earnest respect and admiration for Yang Shi. After cultivating the improved cultivation technique that the other party gave him, not only did he recover from his hidden trauma, he could even vaguely sense that he was going to achieve a breakthrough in his cultivation soon. No matter how foolish one was, it would be clear to them that this was all Yang Shi's work. With just a casual pointer, he was able to induce such massive effects. Given that Jiang Shi was his direct disciple, he must have undergone personal tutelage from the other party on a daily basis. Under such circumstances, it wasn't unimaginable for him to be capable of such incredible feats. Is that Yang Shi still in the capital? Can you bring me to pay him a visit? Recovering from his shock, Su Shi couldn't help but ask. Even though he had never heard of Yang Xian, given how the other party managed to groom an outstanding student like Jiang Xian and induce such a huge improvement in Jiang Shu with just a few casual pointers, his ranking as a master teacher must definitely be above theirs. If they could meet and interact with him, they would definitely benefit greatly from the exchange. Teacher is currently in the capital, but he is often out. If the 2 elders wish to meet him, please allow me to first report the matter to him first. Jiang Shu hurriedly replied. Even though his teacher was in the capital, he was often out of the residence. Also, without teacher's permission, he didn't dare to bring anyone else over, even if the people he was bringing over were 4-star master teachers. We'll be troubling Pavilion Master Jiang then. Su Shi nodded. Just as he was about to continue speaking, Elder Zhu, who had gone out a while ago to settle a few matters, suddenly rushed back anxiously. Su Shi, Ling Shi, and Pavilion Master Jiang Shi and Mo Hongyi have returned and they are currently at the examination hall. It seems like they have decided to end the examination in advance. End the examination in advance? Pavilion Master Jiang froze. It has only been a few days since the examination started, and they have already succeeded in inducing a trust level of 40 among their students in their disguised identity? Chapter 393 Your Name 1. The last test of the 2-star master teacher examination was for them to assume the role of a teacher under another identity, and raise the trust level of their student in them to 40 within 10 days. It hadn't even been 7 days, and they were already here. Could it be that their students' trust levels in them had already reached 40? That Jiang Xian is here too? Hearing the conversation, Su Shi looked over and asked, What's going on? It's like this. Pavilion Master Jiang explained the situation in detail. There were several hundred types of 2-star master teacher examinations depending on the guild one was in. This was precisely the reason why all of the 1-star master teacher in the guild, and this was including Principal Xie, didn't know that the examination for the duel was to conceal their identity and teach at Tianwu Academy. So that's the case. I am also quite interested to see how high the trust level Jiang Xian's students have in him under his disguise. After comprehending the situation, Su Shi nodded, turned his head to the side, and asked, Ling Shi, do you want to come along as well? Ling Shi smiled. I am fine with going over as well, but we have to make some preparations beforehand. As 4-star master teachers, our arrival will surely cause a huge uproar, and the results of the examination might be affected. So, you all shouldn't immediately reveal our identities when we arrive in the examination hall later on. As 4-star master teachers, the two of them possessed esteemed standing. Even the emperor would have to welcome them personally with utmost respect and deference to their position. If news of their arrival were to spread out, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. There was a great possibility that it might affect the accuracy of the results of the test. Jiang Shu and the others nodded in agreement. Since these two had spoken, who would dare to refute them? The group headed straight for the examination hall, and before they could enter, they could already hear a huge commotion in the area. Why did the bell suddenly ring? I've no idea. Maybe someone is going to take the master teacher examination? However, there doesn't seem to be anything here, though. Impossible. Back then, when Zhang Shi and Mo Shi were taking the examination, I was here, and the bell wasn't rung then. Pushing the door open, they immediately saw a huge crowd before them. It was the group who had gathered at the entrance of the Lin clan previously. And Mo Tianxue, Mu Yanfeng. Many esteemed figures of Tianwu Kingdom were within the crowd. They had all rushed here upon hearing the bell to join in with the commotion, but due to the various restrictions of the Master Teacher Pavilion, they could only wait here. Even until now, they had no idea what was going on. Pavilion Master Jiang is here! Pavilion Master Jiang, what happened? Upon seeing the group walk in, someone among the crowd shouted. Of the group, the most conspicuous person was Pavilion Master Jiang. No one paid any heed to Su Shi and Mo Shi, who were standing at the back. Besides, even if they were to notice them, they wouldn't recognize them anyway. The Myriad Kingdom alliance was simply too far away, and Su Shi and Ling Shi were figures way beyond them. Pavilion Master Jiang also only managed to recognize them after their introduction. Something did happen, but there's no need to panic. You will all know soon enough. Pavilion Master Jiang shook his hands casually before turning around to discreetly issue some instructions to Elder Zhu. As soon as the trust level of Zhang Xian and Mo Hongyi's students reach a minimum of 40, he would announce their true identity instantly. In a sense, this could be considered as a huge matter. However, he couldn't say anything about it now. If not, it might affect the final result. After being delegated with some tasks, Elder Zhu backed down, and soon, he led 2 people in. Zhang Xian and Mo Hongyi. But they were still currently in disguise as Lu Qing and Sun Qing. It's Guild Master Lu and Sun Laoshi. I've heard of this Sun Laoshi as well. He was also accepted into Tianwu Academy a few days ago, and his lessons are formidable as well. My son attended his lessons and his cultivation immediately soared furiously. To invite the 2 of them over. Could it be that the Master Teacher Pavilion is going to make an exception for the 2 of them and grant them the position of a Master Teacher? Grant them the position of a Master Teacher? There has never been such a practice. I reckon that the Master Teacher Pavilion is just going to bestow them with some special privileges or something. Discussion sounded among the crowd once more. These 2 had made a name for themselves recently, and there were quite a few people who had looked into their backgrounds. Due to several personal circumstances, either of them were eligible to take on the Master Teacher examination. To be brought here despite their ineligibility. Most probably, the Master Teacher Pavilion was just going to grant them some privileges and protect them. Such matters had happened in the past as well. More than a century ago, there was a teacher whose lessons was incredible, and he made a huge contribution to society. Thus, the Master Teacher Pavilion granted him the title of an honorary elder, and his standing immediately soared. Eventually, even the Tianwu royal family had to treat him as an important guest. Could it be that it was happening again? Wait a moment. If that's the case, why would their students be here then? That's true. Soon, someone noticed that something was amiss. Usually, this kind of bestowment would be announced beforehand. On top of that, this wasn't good enough a reason to knock the assembly bell and have all of the master teachers gather here. And most importantly of all, there was no reason for the duo to bring all of their students here for the ceremony. The crowd here was brought together by Lu Cheng's students. They might not recognize Sun Cheng's students, but upon seeing that Lu Chong, Mu Xueqing, Meng Tao, and the others here, they immediately knew that something was amiss. Actually, they weren't the only confused ones. Mu Xueqing and the others were perplexed as well. Teacher had Lu Chong urgently gather all of them, so they thought that it might be an important matter. They couldn't have imagined that the location they were heading to was the Master Teacher Pavilion. Lu Laoshi wasn't a master teacher, so there shouldn't be any reason for him to be here. The two teachers, who goes first? Pavilion Master Jiang smiled at the duo. Son Laoshi, you should go first, Zhang Xian said. Until now, Zhang Xian still felt a little guilty that his students were the cause of his suffering. All right then, I'll go first. Mo Hongyi didn't turn down the offer. Beckoning behind him back, two students walked out. You two, go in and test your trust level. Don't let me down! It's them? Upon seeing the duo, Zhang Xian was slightly taken aback. He actually recognized the duo. They were the two students whom he met during the public recruitment exercise. One of them detested studying while the other one was on the verge of expulsion. After being accepted into Tianwu Academy and taking over Mu Xueqing's class, Zhang Xian had been busy, so he forgot about the duo. To think that they had become Mo Hongyi's students. Back then, Zhang Xian had already accurately pointed out the crux of their affliction. As such, Mo Hongyi was able to allocate the most appropriate treatment for their afflictions. It was no wonder why Mo Hongyi was so confident of passing the examination. He had come prepared. Yes. The two students nodded and entered the House of Trust. The procedure was exactly the same as for the one-star master teacher examination. Could this Sun Laoshi be Mo Hongyi? Taking this scene into sight, Mo suddenly came to a realization. Since Lu Qing was Zhang Xian, then Mo Hongyi, who had taken the two-star master teacher examination alongside him, had to be this Sun Qing. Only those who are taking the master teacher examination will have to test the trust level of their students, right? Could it be that these two are intending to take the examination as well? But they don't possess the state of insight. How can they take the examination? Let's wait and see. The answer should be revealed soon. The crowd was completely bewildered by this bizarre turn of events, and a deep crease was etched onto their foreheads. They had absolutely no idea what Pavilion Master Jiang was up to, and why this Sun Laoshi was bringing his own students here to test their trust level. 1. A short moment after the entry of the duo, light shone on the door of the House of Trust, and a few digits floated into appearance. The crowd hurriedly took a look. 42. Upon seeing the numbers, Mo Hongyi's tension immediately escaped from him, and he heaved a huge sigh of relief. He was confident that it would exceed 40, but when it came down to it, uncertainty started scratching at his mind. Upon seeing the results, he felt as though a huge weight had been lifted off his chest. Given that he had passed the examination within 10 days, he was, as of now, officially a 2-star master teacher. Not bad! Su Shi and Ling Shi nodded in approval. They had heard of this Mo Hongyi before, and he did possess outstanding talents. In a Tier 1 kingdom, he was indeed a top-notch genius. In fact, even in conferred kingdoms, he would rank among the top. However, in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, he was still far from matching to the true geniuses. While he wasn't mediocre, his feats wouldn't impress anyone there. Lu Laoshi, it's your turn. Now that Mo Hongyi had passed, the eyes of Pavilion Master Jiang and the other master teachers immediately centered on Zhang Xian. All right. Stretching his back lazily, Zhang Xian nodded and smiled. If I recall correctly, as long the trust level of a student of mine reaches 40, I would have passed the examination, right? He seemed to recall that a single student was sufficient for the test. If so, there was no need to trouble the rest of them. Indeed! Pavilion Master Jiang nodded. All right. You enter! Surveying the crowd, Zhang Xian casually pointed. After several days of interaction with his class, he was confident that the trust level of any single of his students would definitely exceed 40. Since that was the case, there was no need to intentionally cause a ruckus. Cough, cough. At times like this, it was best to maintain a low profile. Of course, if Mou and the others were to know his thoughts, they would definitely faint on the spot. Low profile? How in the world do you fit that image? It will already be a miracle if you don't flip the entire world upside down. Yes, teacher. A student walked into the house of trust. He's Zhang Xian? After Zhang Xian's student walked into the room, the two 4-star master teachers from the headquarters immediately turned their attention to Zhang Xian. The scene they saw in the record crystal was simply too shocking. They were curious to see if this young man could create another miracle this time. He seems quite confident. Just that, I wonder what his results will be. Stroking his beard, a contemplative look appeared on Su Shi's face. 30 years ago, our guild also used the same test for the 2-star master teacher examination. I recall that there's a genius who managed to induce a trust level of 65 in his student. Nostalgia filled Lingshi's eyes. The Myriad Kingdom Alliance had once adopted this examination method before as well, and countless geniuses had achieved outstanding results in it. Indeed. That kind of trust level is already comparable to one's parents. To achieve such a level in 10 days, and under disguise at that person's means were indeed outstanding. Su Shi nodded. It would be difficult for even a 3-star master teacher to induce a trust level of 65 in a person within a short period of time, not to mention, in an inconspicuous, disguised identity. To achieve such a result when starting from scratch was indeed a formidable feat, even within the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. But of course, this was only limited to the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. In higher-tiered empires, there were even more absurd geniuses. This Zhang Xian has managed to make so many news records. I wonder if he can surpass the previous genius's record of 65. Lingshi said. Only if he breaks that record will he have the right to compete with those people. The duo spoke using telepathy, so no one could hear their words. 1. Just as they were discussing, the door of the House of Trust swayed, and a few digits floated into appearance. 61. Chapter 390 for your name too. 61? Seeing the number, Su Shi and Lingshi glanced at one another, and a look of disappointment flickered across their faces. They bore high hopes for this youngster who had made many new records, but from the looks of it now, they seemed to have overestimated the other party. 61 is a decent score, but he's still a little lacking to compete with those geniuses. Su Shi shook his head. Indeed, Lingshi agreed. A trust level of 60 was already equivalent to the relationship between parent and child. Zhang Xian's record was far beyond that of Mo Hongyi, but he still failed to meet the expectations of the two 4-star master teachers. This is a pass, right? Oblivious to the disappointment of the duo, Zhang Xian turned to Pavilion Master Jiang and asked. It's a pass. Pavilion Master Jiang nodded. It was a pass as long as the trust level of their student reached 40. 61 was already an extremely high score. Upon seeing Zhang Xian's result, a bitter smile flashed across Mo Hongyi's face. Given how his records were completely overthrown by Zhang Xian previously, even though he knew it was unlikely, he still bore some expectations that he might triumph over him this time around. However, it seemed like he was being too naive. He was truly a far match from this genius. Wait a minute. Lu Laoshi isn't your best student Mu Xueqing and Lu Chong? Who's this student? Why haven't I met him before? Even though Zhang Xian had passed, Pavilion Master Jiang still couldn't help but ask in bewilderment. Based on the news he got, Zhang Xian should be the closest to Mu Xueqing and Lu Chong, so their trust levels should be the highest of his students. The candidates were allowed to pick any student for the test, but usually, one would pick the student they were closest with. Pavilion Master Jiang had been keeping tabs on the examination, but he hadn't seen or heard of this person. Thus, he was perplexed as to why Zhang Xian would send this student forward. Could it be that he had cared for this student more than the others privately, allowing his trust level to reach 61? Upon hearing those words, the crowd also suddenly realized the peculiarity of this issue. Thus, they turned their sights to Zhang Xian, curious to listen to his explanation. You've never met him before? Not expecting the other party to ask such a question, Zhang Xian scratched his head. Allow me to introduce him then. This is... Halfway through, an awkward look surfaced on Zhang Xian's face. He hurriedly turned to look at the student who walked out from the House of Trust and asked, "That? My apologies, but I don't remember your name. May I ask how I should address you?" "Putong. Putong." As soon as Zhang Xian said those words, the crowd immediately fell to the ground. They felt the world spinning around them, and they nearly keeled over on the spot. Even Su Shi and Ling Shi, who were shaking their heads in disappointment a moment ago, had the corner of their lips twitching. "Are you for real? A student who has a trust level of 61 toward you, and you don't even know his name?" To earn the trust of their students, most teachers would treat them as though their friend and use all kinds of means to win their goodwill. Yet you, despite conducting lessons for them for so long, you don't even know his name. More importantly, the other party actually had a trust level of 61 toward you. In other words, you're as close to him as his parents. The heck? Everyone hurriedly turned to the student. Your teacher doesn't even know who you are, and yet you possess such deep trust in him, even moving your clan to stand against the Lin clan for him. Why? Reporting to teacher, I am GE. Teacher once offered me some pointers, solving the problem of my blocked meridians on the left side of my body. Upon hearing his teacher's question, the young man immediately replied with an agitated look. "GE?" Zhang Xian scratched his head in confusion. He really hadn't heard of this name before. However, he did remember solving a student's problem of blocked meridian on the left side of his body. It was at the very first day that he happened to see a student suffering from such a problem. With half of the meridians in his body blocked, he might become paralyzed if he were to continue cultivating. Thus, Zhang Xian stepped in and helped him. In the midst of doing so, this fellow's cultivation also rose by 2 stages, leaving many onlookers green with envy. Thinking of it now, he seemed to recall seeing the name GE in the Library of Heaven's Path. However, as he had met and helped too many students back in Tianwu Academy, and this student didn't have any distinctive traits to him, he forgot about this matter. Operating under 3 identities, Lu Cheng, Zhang Xian, and Yang Xian, he had so many things to handle that even finding time to eat was difficult, so how could he have the energy to remember the names of each and every student? It was already good that he could remember Lu Chong, Mu Xueqing, and Meng Tao's names. "Alright, allow me to introduce him to you all. He's GE, and he's my student." After finding out the other party's name, Zhang Xian introduced him grandly to Pavilion Master Jiang. "Jianshu." The crowd. "We have already heard your conversation. What is the use of you introducing him to us once more? More importantly, given the confused look on your face, all you know about the other party is probably just his name. Clearly, you don't even know what clan he comes from and even how old he is. You might as well just remain quiet like that. At the very least, we can suffer less damage from this farce." At the side, tears were trickling down Mo Hongyi's eyes. What in the world was this? In order to raise the trust level of his students in him swiftly, he only ran short of serving them as though they were his ancestor. Every day, he would ask about their condition and personally tutor them on their cultivation. He would stay up all night to ponder over their situation, fearing that he might make the slightest mistake. In the end, the trust level of these 2 fellows ended up to be only 42. Yet, Zhang Xian didn't even know the name of his student, and the trust level was already 61. The heck? We are both humans, why is there such a huge disparity between us? He instinctively turned to look at his 2 students, and he nearly broke down. These 2 fellows were staring at Lu Laoshi with shining eyes. Clearly, they wanted to become his students as well, and they were filled with envy for Mu Xueqing and the others. "That is enough of you 2. Even you 2 are treating me like that? It's as though you 2 have never met a teacher before. Besides, I am Mo Hongyi, as the #1 genius of Tianwu Kingdom, and not inferior to him, alright?" Seeing the sight before him turn dark, Mo Hongyi suddenly realized what a foolish decision it was for him to take the 2-star master-teacher examination along with this fellow. "This monster," Mou muttered. Others might think that Zhang Xian was putting on an act. After all, The idea of him not knowing the other party when the other party had a trust level of 61 in him was inconceivable. However, Mou knew that this was true. Sometimes this fellow could be so astute that it induced fear in others, and at other times, he could be so clumsy that it left others frustrated. Putting aside his students, Mou thought that it was very possible that if she didn't accompany him to look for the great Herb King, he might not even remember her name as well. Just the thought of it left her stifled. All right. Then, can we test the trust level of Lu Chong then? Holding back his frustration, Pavilion Master Jiang asked. If even a student he didn't know could have a trust level of 61 in him, then what about Lu Chong? After all, for Lu Chong, Jiang Xian even went to the extent of standing against the Lin clan single-handedly. Taken aback, Jiang Xian hesitated. Teacher, I'm willing to give it a try. Before Jiang Xian could finish his words, Lu Chong had already stepped forward. He was also curious to see how much trust he had in his teacher. All right then, be careful. Seeing the intent gazes of the crowd, Jiang Xian knew that it would be difficult for him to reject the matter. Thus, he shook his head helplessly. He had only intended to pass this examination peacefully. Why was it so difficult to keep a low profile? If Mo Hongyi were to know of his thoughts, he would definitely spurt blood. Brother, do you know how hard I've been to keep a high profile all this time, and yet you managed to reach so high while trying to maintain a low profile? Upon receiving permission, Lu Chong walked into the House of Trust delightfully. 1. The House of Trust whirled into operation, and radiant light flashed. Will the trust level of this student be higher than the previous one? Taking this sight in, Su Shi couldn't help but ask Pavilion Master Jiang telepathically. He had just arrived at Tianwu Kingdom, so he hadn't heard of the affairs between Jiang Xian and Lu Chong. Naturally, he couldn't understand the relationship between the duo. Su Shi, just wait and see. Pavilion Master Jiang chuckled softly. He wasn't too sure how much trust Lu Chong would have in Jiang Xian, but he had seen the sight previously for himself. To return justice to his student, Jiang Xian was willing to stand against the powerful Lin clan. It would be inconceivable if Lu Chong's trust level wasn't high. Su Shi and Ling Shi glanced at one another. They knew that Pavilion Master Jiang must have his intentions for saying so, and their expectations couldn't help but rise. The crowd was also curious about the results. The entire examination hall fell silent, and everyone's eyes were fixated on the door of the House of Trust. 1. A moment later, the House of Trust began to shudder, and under a slight buzzing sound, several digits floated into appearance. Upon seeing the numbers, everyone's eyes widened in shock, as though they had seen a ghost. Shock couldn't even begin to describe their emotion. Even the lips of Su Shi and Ling Shi were quivering, and their eyeballs nearly popped out of their skulls. 99? A trust level of 99? This is impeccable trust, life and death companions? Chapter 395, Kong Shi, accept me. The trust level's cap was 100, and anything above 90 was considered to be at the pinnacle. Usually, this was a relationship that only existed between 6-star master teachers and their students. A trust level above 95 was even rarer. At the very least, at their level, Su Shi and Ling Shi had never heard of it. This kind of trust level was known as impeccable trust, life and death companions. In other words, with this kind of trust level, under the instructions of his teacher, the student wouldn't hesitate to charge to his death. Su Shi and Ling Shi could only feel the world rotating around them. A moment ago, they thought that Jiang Xian was inferior to those top-notch geniuses, and only now did they realize that the other party had only chosen not to bring out his best student. A trust level of 99. Putting everything aside, even their students whom they have taught for more than 30 years didn't reach this level. Yet, in just 6 days, this fellow. How could there be such an incredible monster? Trust level of 99? So high. The room immediately burst into commotion. There were many clan heads and elders in the examination hall. Even though they weren't master teachers, they still knew what trust level meant. to reach the level of 99. This was beyond their imagination. Such a feat sent them into a frenzy. How could he be an ordinary teacher with this kind of trust level? Even master teachers wouldn't be able to achieve such results, someone shouted. Only with the trust of one's student would one be able to teach properly. Thus, trust had always been an important factor between the relationship of a master teacher and a student. To be capable of such a feat, could it be that this Lu Laoshi was a master teacher? They had never considered this possibility, but at this moment, they couldn't help but doubt this matter. All right, since the examination has ended, allow me to announce the news that I spoke of earlier. Seeing the doubtful expression on the crowd, Pavilion Master Jiang chuckled. Turning to Zhang Xian and Mo Hongyi, he said, "You can take off your masks now." On! Knowing that they had passed their examination and it was time for them to revert back to their original identity, their hands reached for their faces and tore off their masks. It's Zhang Shi. Lu Laoshi is Zhang Shi? No wonder! All along, I've thought it was weird that two geniuses could appear in the capital all of the sudden. To think that they were the same person. In my entire life, I've only admired two people, and now, it has dropped down to one. A ruckus broke out in the examination hall. The two geniuses that appeared in the capital recently had been a topic of contention, and many fans and haters had been arguing as to who was superior. Yet, to think that they were the same person. The heck? Surely there was a mistake somewhere? If so, didn't it mean that this Zhang Shi was also a monster in the way of medicine and swordsmanship as well? Lu Laoshi, is Zhang Shi? Upon seeing the other party take off his mask and hearing the discussions of the crowd, Mu Xueqing, Lu Chong, and the others were dumbstruck. A while ago, out of admiration for Zhang Xian, they had desired to have him take their class. However, they knew that it was impossible. To think that their dreams then actually came true. Happiness came so quickly. Lu Laoshi was actually Zhang Shi. If only they'd known earlier, they wouldn't have bothered competing with Zhao Ye and the others. They fought so heatedly with one another, only to realize that they were rooting for the same person. Indeed. Standing at the back of the crowd, Zhao Ye and the others, who had just arrived at this moment, smiled bitterly. Even though they had their guesses about this matter, seeing this sight personally still astounded them. This was especially so for Jing Yang and Yuan Tao. The two of them were already on the verge of tears, and if they could, they'd knock their heads against the ground and die. As students, they actually poisoned their own teacher. What in the world was this? They had truly brought Zhang Laoshi shame this time. Guildmaster Lu, is Zhang Shi? And Mo Tianxue was also taken aback. He glanced at his daughter and shook his head helplessly. Before, he thought that Zhang Shi was beyond their reach, so he had his daughter interact more with Guildmaster Lu, earning his favor if possible. But from the looks of this was just wishful thinking on his part. A genius of that caliber was bound for the vast world outside. Tianwu Kingdom wasn't big enough to confine him, and it was a matter of time before he spread his wings to reach even higher heights. After unmasking, all kinds of thoughts flashed through the minds of the crowd. However, what that dominated the minds of most was astonishment. No one could have imagined that Guildmaster Lu, who caused a huge uproar in the capital, and the great genius Zhang Xian would be the same person. After all, the both of them possessed different levels of cultivation and appearances. Also, their background was flawless, and all the evidence proved that they were two different people. Here's your emblems. Knowing that there would be such a sight, Pavilion Master Jiang paid it no heed. He took out two emblems and passed them over to the duo. Since they had passed the examination, from today onward, they were two-star master teachers. Everyone, since Zhang Shi and Mo Shi have passed the two-star master teacher examination, they'll have to head to the teacher acknowledgement hall to seek the ancestors' acknowledgement. Thus, we'll leave first. Placing the emblem into the palms of the duo, Pavilion Master Jiang smiled and clasped his fist toward the crowd. All right, we'll be leaving now. Since this is the tradition of the Master Teacher Pavilion, we shan't impose on you all then. In any case, being able to personally witness a trust level of 99 between a student and teacher, and the unveiling of Lu Laoshir's true identity as Zhang Shi. This trip isn't wasted. Knowing the meaning behind the other party's words, the crowd bade their farewells. The reason why they came here was to uncover the reason behind the ringing of the assembly bell. Being able to witness the final proceedings of the 2-star master teacher examination made this trip one worth taking. Today's matter would surely spread across the 13 surrounding kingdoms in the fastest time possible. Zhang Xian would soon become the idol of countless people. Soon, only the master teachers were left in the examination hall. Zhang Shi and Mo Shi, since you two have passed the 2-star master teacher examination, then going by our traditions, we'll have to bring you all to the ancestors to seek their recognition, as well as to explain the responsibilities and duties of a master teacher to the two of you. Let's head to the teacher acknowledgement hall together. After the crowd left, Pavilion Master Jiang started speaking. On! Aware of this rule, Zhang Xian nodded. Then, following behind Pavilion Master Jiang, he headed out of the examination hall. The teacher acknowledgement hall wasn't too far away from the examination hall. In just a few footsteps, the group reached their destination. Countless ancestral tablets filled the room, and a massive statue stood at the very center of the room. Holding onto a scroll in his hands, he had an imposing appearance. This. Catching sight of the tablet, Zhang Xian's head jolted. Confusion blinked into his eyes. It's that old geezer? He just met that man this morning, right after he was conferred as a celestial master teacher. Not only did the other party pull him into an illusion, he even demanded him to become his student. Back then, Zhang Xian rejected him flatly. To think that there would be a statue of him in the teacher acknowledgement hall. Who's this old geezer? Is he the previous pavilion master? Why would the statue of this shameless fellow be placed here? Recalling how the other party tried to do him in secretly, Zhang Xian felt a little frustrated. Turning to Pavilion Master Jiang, he pointed to the statue and questioned righteously. What in the world was this? The teacher acknowledgement hall was such an important location, yet the statue of that despicable old geezer was actually placed here. Wasn't this way too inappropriate? Old geezer? Pavilion Master Jiang, Su Shi, Ling Shi, and the few other master teachers tagging along turned pale, and they nearly fainted on the spot. This was Kong Shi, the greatest teacher in history. No matter who it was, even if one was a 9-star master teacher, one would have to bow to him with utmost respect. Yet to address him as old geezer. The heck. You must be mad. Audacious. Fling his sleeves, Su Shi roared furiously. I'm speaking the truth. This fellow assaulted me. Upon recalling that sight, Zhang Xian couldn't help but feel frustrated. Just as he was about to continue speaking, he suddenly froze. Turning to Su Shi with a doubtful gaze, he asked, Who are you? Where did you come from? Is this your place to speak? There were a total of 13 1-star master teachers and 3 2-star master teachers in Tianwu Kingdom. Adding Mo Hongyi and him, there was a total of 5 2-star master teachers now. Zhang Xian had met all of them before, and other than them, there was no one who could match up to his current standing in Tianwu Kingdom. The hierarchy among master teachers was strict, and lower-ranked master teachers weren't allowed to talk back to higher-ranked ones. Didn't this old fellow know that he was a 2-star master teacher? Wasn't he afraid of being charged with insubordination? Pavilion Master Jiang, Vice Pavilion Master Guan, Elder Zhu, and the others tugged at their head in frenzy. Criticizing Kong Shi as a shameless, old geezer was already sufficient to send everyone into a frenzy. And yet now you're criticizing a 4-star master teacher in public? All of the master teachers who followed along felt as though they were going mad. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly before the 2 4-star master teachers for fear of incurring their displeasure. Yet, this fellow criticized one of them to his face. Do you need to be so courageous? Don't worry. Su Shi and I came from afar, and Pavilion Master Jiang hasn't introduced us yet. So, it's natural for Zhang Shi to not recognize us. Sensing the awkwardness in the atmosphere, Ling Shi spoke up. Master teachers needed to have a disposition and attitude befitting of their positions. They had concealed their identity intentionally, so it wasn't surprising for the other party to not know the truth. Seeing how respectful your tone is, I'll forgive you this time around. Zhang Xian nodded. Given the earnest attitude of the other party, Zhang Xian couldn't be bothered to pursue this matter either. Cough, cough. Upon seeing that his words had earned him the forgiveness of the other party, Ling Shi immediately choked on his saliva. Given that the other party didn't know their identity, he couldn't be blamed for his lack of respect. Thus, instead of dawdling on the issue, Su Shi began to introduce the statue. I was rash just now. Once I introduce the person the statue is modeled after, you will understand the reason behind my words. In the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall, even 9-star master teachers were only given the rights to have their names marked on the ancestral tablets. Yet, the massive statue is placed right in the center of the hall. Can't you guess his identity? His identity. Zhang Xian was taken aback. As soon as he saw the old geezer's appearance, he immediately recalled how the other party assaulted him when he was off guard, and clouded by rage, he immediately spoke without thinking. Thinking of it now, there was indeed something amiss. Marked on the ancestral tablets were 8-star, 9-star master teachers whose name and feats shook the entire continent. Even so, their names were only inscribed on the tablets. Yet this person had a gigantic statue placed at the very center of the room. This, in itself, already said a lot about the identity of the person. Could he be? A possibility flashed across his mind, and Zhang Xian widened his eyes in shock. Indeed, he's Kong Shi. Su Shi stroked his beard. As the founder of the Master Teacher Pavilion, all newly appointed master teachers are to pay respect to him. Kong Shi? Zhang Xian was stunned. He had been looking into Kong Shi's affairs to uncover the cure for the innate fetal poison all along. However, perhaps due to the remote location or that too long a time had passed, there wasn't too much information on the other party left in this world. Eventually, even with the help of the Library of Heaven's Path, the only solution Zhang Xian got was that he had to become a 9-star master teacher to resolve this poison. Thus, he intended to head to higher-tiered master teacher pavilions to continue looking into the matter, but who could have thought that? Kong Shi tried to take him in as his student, yet he, straightforwardly, rejected him? Old geezer. Ah no, Kong Shi. I agree to it. Take me in as your student, take me in as your student. With a pale face, Zhang Xian howled before diving straight toward the statue with glowing eyes. Su Shi and Ling Shi. Pavilion Master Jiang and the other master teachers. Chapter 396. Acknowledgement of the Ancestors. This was Kong Shi, the incredible figure who founded the Master Teacher Pavilion. If Zhang Xian was accepted as his student, not only could he learn the solution to solving the innate fetal poison, he would even gain a huge backer. If he were to become the student of such a formidable figure, he would probably get at least a few thousand spirit stones as an acceptance gift. Otherwise, it would be unbefitting of his title as the world's teacher. If only I knew that you are Kong Shi, I wouldn't have rejected you so haughtily. I would have surely agreed to it immediately. Zhang Xian felt so regretful that his intestines were turning green. To reject even Kong Shi's admittance, was there a person who was more foolish than him in this world? If he knew that such a matter would occur, he would have at least flipped through some books to take a look at Kong Shi's appearance. If he knew who this old geezer was, he wouldn't have made such a foolish decision. Kong Shi has already been dead for many years. This is only his statue, and it doesn't possess consciousness. Seeing the fellow before him going into a frenzy, Su Shi hurriedly stepped forward to persuade him. Kong Shi had departed from the world many years ago, and what was left in his statue was just his lingering will. Putting aside your crying, it will be useless even if you were to smash this statue. Take you in? Do you think that it's that easy to become Kong Shi's student? Could it be that it isn't him? Different from Su Shi's reaction, Pavilion Master Jiang, Elder Zhu, and the others glanced at one another doubtfully. This morning, they had witnessed the bestowment of the title of Celestial Master Teacher, and the act of Kong Shi accepting a disciple for themselves. And they remembered clearly how that person rejected him on the spot. All along, they had been thinking that it was Zhang Shi, but from the looks of it, that didn't seem to be the case. After all, just by looking at the desire and anticipation on his face, how could he have possibly given up such a good opportunity? But of course, if Zhang Xian were to know their thoughts, he would probably burst into tears. Do you think that I wanted that to happen? It's because I didn't recognize him. Doesn't possess consciousness? I see. Lifting his head to take another look at the statue, he confirmed that there wasn't any spirit within it, unlike the situation before. Thus, Zhang Xian could only shake his head helplessly. Even so, he secretly sneaked his hand over and touched the statue. Who? A book appeared in the Library of Heaven's Path. A statue produced in Luohai City from a 9mo craftsman. It was created by roasting deep ocean soil for 49 days, giving it a durability that could even last past a millennium. Flaws. Pooh! Zhang Xian's body swayed. There was no doubt about it. What was before him was just a simple statue. To think that he passed up the opportunity to become Kong Shi's disciple. Such a huge waste. Let's begin. Seeing that the genius Zhang Shi had finally reverted back to his normal state, Su Shi gestured. On! Pavilion Master Jiang stepped forward and said, You two have passed the examination and obtained your master teacher emblems, but to be acknowledged by the other master teachers, you all must gain the acknowledgement of the ancestors first. If you succeed, the ancestors will bestow you a unique aura. Even without your emblem, through exuding this aura, other master teachers will still be able to recognize you. Even though Su Shi and Ling Shi didn't take out their emblems just now, and all they had said was their names, Pavilion Master Jiang didn't doubt their words at all. This was because of a unique aura that they exuded which confirmed their identities. Succeed? Does that mean that there are people who aren't acknowledged? Zhang Xian asked doubtfully. Of course. The acknowledgement depends on the will of the ancestors. Every single tablet possesses a lingering spirit. Even though they don't possess consciousness, they are capable of determining whether a person is truly qualified to become a master teacher or not. Smiling, Pavilion Master Jiang pointed to the front. You both only need to kneel here. When an ancestor acknowledges you, his tablet will fall. With every acknowledgement, you will earn a surge of aura. The more ancestors who acknowledge you, the greater the surge of aura will be. This is also an indication of their approval of your talent, and their belief in your capability to reach greater heights. I see. Zhang Xian came to an understanding. Since he took the 2-star master teacher straight away, he had never been here, so he wasn't too sure of the proceedings. On the other hand, Mo Hongyi, already being experienced in this matter, wasn't too surprised by the process. If one fails to earn the acknowledgement of any ancestor, will one lose their master teacher qualification? Since there were those who weren't acknowledged by any as well, what would happen to them? They couldn't possibly strip a person of his license after all the hard work he put into passing the examination just because some tablets refused to acknowledge them. Of course not. Pavilion Master Jiang shook his head. Actually, it's common for one not to be recognized. The owners of these tablets were all powerful figures in their lifetime, and they only acknowledged those who managed to catch their eye. Under normal circumstances, the chances of a 1-star master teacher being recognized are less than 1%. Even for 2-star master teacher, the chances are only at 10%. 10%? The crowd was dumbstruck. This percentage was really way too low. At 3-star, the possibility will be raised to 20%. At 4-star, 40%, and at 5-star, 70%. Only 6-star master teachers have a 100% possibility of being acknowledged. However, the number of tablets that fall for them would be a completely different matter. Pavilion Master Jiang nodded. Even though they didn't have any master teachers beyond 2-star in their guild, this was all basic knowledge. As the Pavilion Master, he was well aware of such details. Zhang Xian finally understood the difficulty of the matter. A 6-star master teacher was a powerful expert whose stomp could cause an entire region to tremble regardless of where he went. Even the entire Myriad Kingdom Alliance could be easily destroyed before the might of such a figure. Yet one had to reach such a level before there was a 100% chance they could be acknowledged. From this, the difficulty of the matter was clear to see. Receiving the acknowledgement from the ancestors is an honor. Those who received the acknowledgement of more ancestors tended to be more talented, and most of them went on to achieve great things in the future. The most famous genius in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, Jun Rohuan, managed to pass the 4-star Master Teacher examination before reaching his 30s, and his feat became a legend among the Master Teachers in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Back then, when he passed his 2-star Master Teacher examination, he earned the acknowledgement from 7 of the tablets. Su Shi turned to look at Zhang Xian and smiled. If the greatest genius in Tianwu Kingdom was Zhang Xian, then Jun Rohuan was, indubitably, the number 1 genius of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Becoming a 4-star Master Teacher under 30? Zhang Xian was astounded. All of the Master Teachers he knew were mostly in their 70s and 80s. Under such a trend, to be able to pass the 4-star Master Teacher examination below 30 was indeed a formidable feat, and it bore testimony to the other party's talents. In comparison to him, even the number 1 genius of Tianwu Kingdom Mo Hongyi lost his radiance. The further one progressed as a Master Teacher, the more difficult the examinations became, the greater the demand on one's soul depth. Many talented experts ended up being stuck at 3-star for their entire life, unable to take the final leap to become a 4-star Master Teacher. Based on the classification of the guild headquarters, one was considered a primary Master Teacher from 1-star to 3-star, an intermediate Master Teacher from 4-star to 6-star, and an advanced Master Teacher from 7-star to 9-star. There was a huge gap in standing between 3-star to 4-star. It was as though the distance between Tongxian Realm and Zhongshu Realm, and ordinary people couldn't hope to make the leap. There's no need for you two to feel pressured about this. It's best to be acknowledged, but if not, there is no need for you two to worry. For the past 300 years, there hasn't been a person who succeeded before. All I hope is for a single exception to happen while I am still the Pavilion Master so that I can brag about it when I visit the other pavilions. Pavilion Master Jiang smiled bitterly. Zhang Xian nodded. He was initially a little tense over the matter, but after learning that it wasn't necessary, he heaved a sigh of relief. But that was to be expected. Different Master Teachers had different expectations. It was possible for a talented Master Teacher to not meet the eyes of any of the ancestors. Besides, the owners of those tablets had already turned into dust, and all that was left of them was just a lingering will. It shouldn't be a big deal even if one failed to win their acknowledgement. I'm most sure you should go first. After explaining the entire matter, Pavilion Master Jiang beckoned Mo Hongyi forward. Yes. Mo Hongyi nodded. There was a grim look on his face. Back then, when he was still a 1-star Master Teacher, he failed to earn the acknowledgement of any of the ancestors. As the number 1 genius of Tianwu Kingdom, especially after hearing the deeds of Jun Rohuan, his motivation suddenly surged. If he were to succeed, he would leave a mark in history. At the very least, he wouldn't pale too much in comparison to Zhang Xian. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward and kneeled onto the prayer mat at the very center of the room. Descendant Mo Hongyi pays respect to the ancestors, and I earnestly plead for your acknowledgement. His voice was crisp. After finishing his words, his entire body bent forward, nearly touching the floor. How is it? Zhang Xian hurriedly turned his attention to the tablets. The other Master Teachers, including Su Shi and Ling Shi, also looked over in interest as well. Mo Hongyi was the most talented genius in Tianwu Kingdom for the past millennium. Despite his young age, he had already passed the 2-star Master Teacher examination. Putting aside the monster, Zhang Xian, he was famous even in Xianyuan Kingdom. If such a person couldn't earn the acknowledgement of the ancestors, then the test of the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall was indeed too difficult. No one dared to speak, and the entire room fell so silent that even a pin drop could be heard. Kacha! After a long period of time, just as everyone thought that there was no hope, a tablet fell over. Boom! Then, a surge of green aura flew from the depths of the hall and shrouded Mo Hongyi. This is the same unique aura from the bestowment of Celestial Master Teacher? Upon seeing the aura, Zhang Xian was taken aback. Back when Zhang Xian was bestowed the title of Celestial Master Teacher, he had been shrouded by a unique aura which swiftly increased his soul depth. To think that the acknowledgement from the ancestral tablets in the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall would have the same effects. It was no wonder why a Celestial Master Teacher would be acknowledged by other Master Teachers even without an emblem. So, the aura that the others were talking about referred to this. How sparse. After confirming the identity of the green aura, Zhang Xian couldn't help but shake his head. When he became a Celestial Master Teacher, the green aura was as thick as billowing smoke, but the surge shrouding Mo Hongyi was only around the thickness of a finger. This was just like the difference between a raging river and a small stream. In a few breaths, Mo Hongyi managed to absorb it cleanly. Delight showed clearly on Mo Hongyi's face as he stood up. He couldn't suppress the exhilaration in his heart. Even though only one ancestral tablet had fallen for him, he had at least won the acknowledgement of a single ancestor. With this, he had broken the record of the Tianwu Kingdom Master Teacher Pavilion for the past few centuries. Incredible! As expected of the X-1 genius of our kingdom. Finally, one of our master teachers is acknowledged. Good! That old fellow Zhao Shui won't be able to brag about this matter before me anymore. Upon seeing this sight, Pavilion Master Jiang, Elder Zhu, and the others couldn't help but exclaim excitedly. None of the master teachers in Tianwu Kingdom had ever earned the acknowledgement of the ancestors before. Seeing this sight before them, they couldn't hold back their agitation anymore. Not bad! To earn the acknowledgement of an ancestor as a 2-star master teacher, you have a bright future in front of you. Even I only managed to earn their acknowledgement upon reaching 3-star. Su Shi nodded in approval. Being approved at 3-star is already an incredible feat. I only managed to have a single tablet fall for me after becoming a 4-star master teacher. Seems like the talent of Mo Shi is indeed incredible. Ling Shi chuckled. Even Su Shi and Ling Shi failed to be recognized when they were still 2-star master teachers. From this, the difficulty of this trial was clear to see. Alright, now that Mo Shi has obtained the approval of an ancestor, Zhang Shi, it's your turn. Recovering from his shock, Pavilion Master Jiang turned to Zhang Xian. The crowd immediately turned their attention to Zhang Xian as well. Chapter 397, Kong Shi's statue breaks. Alright. Zhang Xian nodded. As a celestial master teacher, the acknowledgement of these ancestors didn't mean much to him. However, since he was here, he was also curious to see how many of their acknowledgements he could receive. Thus, walking forward to the praying mat, he took a deep breath and knelt down. Descendant Zhang Xian pays respect to the ancestors, and I earnestly plead for your acknowledgement. Then, Zhang Xian bowed deeply, just as Mo Hongyi did earlier. Everyone immediately turned their gazes to the ancestral tablets. Even the 4-star master teachers, Su Shi and Ling Shi, felt a little nervous as well, and they clenched their fists tightly. This fellow had created too many miracles. Perhaps, he might be able to break Jun Ruohuan's record. Everyone waited expectantly with bated breaths. The hall fell completely silent. However, the ancestral tablets remained fixated on their spot, and there was no sign of them falling over at all. It can't be that he failed to earn the acknowledgement of all of the ancestors? After a while, the master teachers in the hall glanced at one another in bewilderment. This Zhang Xian had broken so many records, and the trust level of a student he taught even reached a shocking 99. He should be able to earn the respect of quite a handful of experts. Why wasn't there any movement at all? This was way too peculiar. Usually, the tablets will fall within a T's time. The time has already passed, but there isn't any movement. Seems like it's a failure. After another moment of silence, Pavilion Master Jiang roughly calculated the timing, and a look of disappointment appeared on his face. Based on the results of the two, since Mo Hongyi was able to earn the acknowledgement of one of the ancestors, Zhang Shi should be able to earn the acknowledgement of quite a few. Yet, the current situation broke all preconceptions they had. He couldn't help but feel slightly under. Talent and strength aren't the determining factors for the ancestor's acknowledgement. Rather, it's whether you are suited to be his student or not. After a moment later, Su Shi spoke up. It could be that Zhang Shi's talents are too high, and they feel pressured. The explanation felt shaky to even Su Shi, but this was the only reason he could find. Otherwise, it made totally no sense for the less talented Mo Hongyi to succeed and the more talented Zhang Xian to fail. Indeed. That must be the case. Otherwise, how could not earn even a single acknowledgement from the ancestors? Smiling bitterly, Pavilion Master Jiang was just about to continue speaking when Vice Pavilion Master Guan pointed over and said, "Wait, something is amiss. Look there." Everyone hurriedly raised their heads, but the ancestral tablets were still completely still. Vice Pavilion Master Guan. Jiang Shu looked at him doubtfully. "I'm not referring to the tablets, but..." Vice Pavilion Master Guan's face turned pale, and his lips quivered in fear. "But..." Kong Shi's statue. Everyone froze for a moment before swiftly turning their gazes to the massive statue. The statue, which was fixated to the ground suddenly, swayed. The statue is swaying? Not only was the crowd surprised, even Su Shi and Ling Shi were perplexed over this phenomenon. They had seen the tablets fall over before, but they never heard of Kong Shi swaying. It's not swaying. Just as everyone was stunned by this bizarre occurrence, Pavilion Master Jiang suddenly realized something and exclaimed, "Zhang Shi, watch out." Before he could finish his words, Jia, the gigantic Kong Shi statue, fell to the floor. The location where Zhang Xian was bowing toward was right in front of the statue, and the statue fell straight towards his head. The hell! Zhang Xian, who was kneeling and awaiting the acknowledgement of the ancestors, couldn't possibly have expected that such a huge statue would fall on him. His complexion immediately turned awful. Knowing that it was too late for him to avoid, he hurriedly stood up and faced it head-on. Pun! His fist and the statue collided together. On top of being a Zongshi realm pinnacle expert, Zhang Xian possessed a physical strength of 9,999 ding. No matter how resilient the Kong Shi statue was, it was made of mud, so how could it withstand the might of his fist? Boom! It exploded from the center. Walala! The moment Kong Shi's statue was broke apart, the sound of beans popping sounded, and the ancestral tablets in the room hurriedly fell down. Then, Jia, the entire teacher acknowledgement hall began to shake as well. Escape. Pavilion Master Zhang's face paled, and he hurriedly shouted. Then, he darted out of the hall with the group of master teachers. Not daring to hesitate at all, Zhang Xian also dashed out. The moment he left the room, boom, the grand hall collapsed inward. Dust flew in the air, and smoke billowed. What the heck just happened? Pavilion Master Jiang and the other master teachers were completely dumbfounded. They hurriedly turned to the stunned youngster standing not too far away, and an urge to strangle him to death welled up within them. When other people paid respect to the ancestors, they either got acknowledged or ignored. Yet when it was his turn, not only did he destroy Kong Shi's statue, he even tore down the entire teacher acknowledge hall. What was wrong with you? Kong Shi is the world's teacher, an existence whom everyone respects. Even if his statue was going to fall on you, shouldn't you at least support him? To face him with a fist, what was going through your head? To make a move on Kong Shi. That is enough of you. All of the master teachers felt a spell of dizziness. The young man before them stared at the ruins, and scratching his head, he asked, Have I been acknowledged? Acknowledged? Acknowledged your head. Everyone was on the verge of tears. You destroyed Kong Shi's statue and tore down the ancestral hall. How in the world can you still hope for others to acknowledge you? In truth, Zhang Xian was breaking down within as well. He was fine with not being acknowledged, but what in the world was with that falling statue? Since it was durable to the extent of being able to last for beyond a millennium, its toughness was already far beyond that of ordinary rocks. If he didn't strike back and allow it to fall on his head, even if his physical body was strong enough to endure it, he would probably suffer a concussion. This old geezer must be trying to get back at me. Zhang Xian was speechless. Back then, he refused to acknowledge Kong Shi as his teacher, so the other party must be trying to get back at him for that. Otherwise, why would such a huge statue suddenly fall on him? And for the entire Teacher Acknowledgement Hall to fall along with it? How was he supposed to resolve this situation now? No one is to talk about what happened today. After a moment of silence, Su Shi scanned the surroundings and instructed. The destruction of Kong Shi's statue and the collapsing of the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall were no different from having the tomb of one's ancestor being ransacked. If news were to spread out, others would definitely laugh their heads off. The prestige of their master-teacher pavilion would be whittled down. Thus, the only thing they could do now was to seal the news. It was fortunate that there were only a handful of people present, and given their standing, they would surely be reluctant to speak of such a shameful affair. Yes. The crowd nodded. All right, it's nothing much to not be acknowledged. Since you two have become master teachers, allow me to introduce you two to your responsibilities and duties as master teachers. Knowing that it was a waste of time to discuss this matter, Pavilion Master Jiang immediately changed the topic. As a teacher, one's role is to impart knowledge and clarify doubts. As a master teacher, this is even more so expected of you. Back then, when Kong Shi established the Master Teacher Pavilion, he only had a single vision in mind. That is, for everyone to become an expert. For everyone to become an expert? Mo Hongyi and Zhang Xian frowned. Indeed. Even though our world may seem peaceful on the surface, that's actually not the case. A grim expression appeared on Pavilion Master Jiang. Back in Kong Shi's era, humans weren't the only dominant race in the continent. There was another powerful race, the otherworldly demonic tribe. Otherworldly demonic tribe. It's an extremely powerful race, and every single one of them possesses the strength of a Zhizuan realm expert from birth. Back then, humans who were captured by them ended up as their slaves for life. Pavilion Master Jiang slowly explained. Eventually, under Kong Shi's leadership, the human race managed to emerge triumphant. He then established the Master Teacher Pavilion and promoted the heritage of equality of education, hoping that all humans could gain sufficient strength to fend for themselves. Zhang Xian was shocked. Even though he had a huge collection of books in the Library of Heaven's Path, such ancient secrets weren't written in any one of the books, so he had never heard of it before. He could have never imagined that there would be such a powerful race in the world, possessing the strength of a Zhizuan realm from birth. Do you two know why poison masters are despised and unrecognized by the other occupations? Pavilion Master Jiang asked. Zhang Xian and Mo Hongyi glanced at one another doubtfully before shaking their heads. Even though the ability of poison masters to kill others discreetly induces fear in others, their expertise contributes a lot to the human race as well. Even so, the other occupations still despise them. The reason for it isn't just fear and worry, but back then, they once allied with the otherworldly demonic tribe and helped them to bring harm to their human counterparts. Pavilion Master Jiang explained. The duo immediately came to a realization. Actually, Zhang Xian had also been perplexed over this matter. Poison masters were indeed fearsome foes, but they weren't a deranged bunch who poisoned everyone they met. Not to mention poison was, by no means, omnipotent too. He didn't think that there was a need to be so guarded against them, going to the extent of chasing them out of the cities and exiling them to remote corners such as the Red Lotus Range. However, after hearing this news, he realized that it was due to the unforgivable deeds that poison masters had once done. As time passed, the grudges were forgotten, but habits die hard, thus resulting in the current circumstances. Even today, poison masters remained a feared existence. No one was willing to provoke them, but their name remained sullied. All right, you two are just two-star master teachers, and this matter has already passed. The otherworldly demonic tribe no longer exists, so there's no need for you to ponder so much over it. Pavilion Master Jiang smiled. Even though the danger from the otherworldly demonic tribe has passed, the heritage of the master teachers continues on to this day. As long as you are a member of the Master Teacher Pavilion, you are expected to fulfill the role of a teacher, follow the rules of the Master Teacher Pavilion, and enlighten the masses. It is not because of our title as Master Teachers, but because of our role in enlightening the masses that we are given unparalleled standing and esteem. Then, Pavilion Master Zhang's face grew stern. If I were to learn that any of you two were to commit atrocities and infringe the rules, even if I didn't do anything, other master teachers would definitely find you and purge you. Yes. Zhang Xian and Mo Hongyi nodded. Remember, being a master teacher isn't an honor or a standing, it's a responsibility and a duty. A true master teacher should always have his students' welfare in his mind. Only by fulfilling our role will we be acknowledged and respected by others. After delegating his instructions, Pavilion Master Jiang shook his hands casually and said, "All right, I've already said all that I need to. Let's go to the main hall. I'll introduce you two to Su Shi and Ling Shi." "On!" the duo answered, and the three of them headed to the main hall of the Master Teacher Pavilion. No one noticed the slight unique aura slowly seeping out from each of the innumerable ancestral tablets, and Kong Shi's statue. Gathering together, they formed a huge torrent. However, as there wasn't anyone to accept it, it slowly dissipated with time, as though it had never appeared before. Chapter 398 Rejection of the Ancestors. Sorrowful chimes of the bell in the conference hall of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Master Teacher Pavilion. I believe that everyone should know of the matter. I hope that you all can try your best so that our name won't be sullied. The austere elder seated on the center seat gestured grandly. The head of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Master Teacher Pavilion, for Star Pinnacle Master Teacher, Pavilion Master Kong Gon. Pavilion Master, rest assured. We will do our best to find the most suitable candidate so as to not sully the name of our Myriad Kingdom Alliance. I've been informed that Elder Su and Elder Ling heard of a genius in Xianyuan Kingdom. They rushed there a few days ago. Elder Bai and Elder Lu heard that there's a genius who passed the Master Teacher examination at Qiyuan Kingdom, and they rushed there 8 days ago as well. The elders in the hall hurriedly answered. These elders were dressed in the robes specially crafted for Master Teachers, and an emblem sat on their chest, reflecting their ranks. There were several 4-star Master Teachers in the hall, and even the weakest of those present was a 2-star. The radiance that shone off their emblems was dazzling. Good. Make preparations in advance to welcome and groom them. In the past, our Myriad Kingdom Alliance's ranking has always been at the very bottom. This time, we must show them that our geniuses don't lose out to them in any way. The Pavilion Master harumphed. On. The crowd nodded. Just as they were about to continue discussing, a bell suddenly sounded. It carried deep sorrow in its chiming, as though something tragic had happened. Dong 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 dong. Then, innumerable bells started sounding as well. What's going on? Pavilion Master Kong abruptly stood up. That direction. The Teacher Acknowledgement Hall. Ascertaining the direction where the sound came from, a Master Teacher's face suddenly distorted in shock, and he exclaimed loudly, "Let's go take a look!" Pavilion Master Kong and the others immediately rushed out and headed straight for the Master Teacher Pavilion. Upon pushing open the door, what welcomed them was the sight of countless ancestral tablets shaking nonstop, and sorrowful calls sounded from them, as though they had met with something tragic. At the same time, surge after surge of bizarre aura circled around those tablets, and the deep rumbling of thunder roared from their movements. This is rejection of the ancestors, sorrowful chimes of the bell. Pavilion Master Kang's face changed, and he nearly fell to the floor. Rejection of the ancestors? What does this mean? Seeing Pavilion Master Kang's loss of composure, one of the Master Teachers couldn't help but ask. After passing the Master Teacher examination, one would head to the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall to pay respects to the ancestor and seek their acknowledgement. Many people take pride in being acknowledged by the ancestors. Pavilion Master Kong started explaining. The crowd nodded. This was common knowledge among Master Teachers. The greater the number of ancestors who acknowledged one when one was a lower-tiered Master Teacher, the more likely it was for one to climb to greater heights in the future. This should be something for Master Teachers to take pride in. As Master Teachers, you all should know that while teachers can choose their students, students are allowed to choose their teachers as well. At this point, slight disbelief flashed in the eyes of Pavilion Master Kong, and he clenched his fists tightly. The ancestors can acknowledge their descendants, but at the same time, their acknowledgement can be rejected as well. Rejected? The acknowledgement of the ancestors isn't just an honor, it also grants a unique aura that raises one's soul depth. There's actually a person who would reject it. Taken aback by Pavilion Master Kang's words, the crowd widened their eyes in shock. Putting aside the fact that the acknowledgement of the ancestors represented unparalleled honor, more importantly, it could nourish a person's soul depth. Yet, for someone to reject it? Why? There were such cases in the past as well. Taking in the aura granted by an ancestor means having the will of the ancestors will imprinted within one. In other words, that ancestor will be considered as a half-teacher for one. As everyone should know, the moment one accepts the favor of another, one will establish a karmic debt with the other party. One has to eventually pay back the favor. Some of the top-notch geniuses refuse to accept this kind of favor, so they reject it outright. Pavilion Master Kang explained. This. The crowd was stunned. Even though it would establish a karmic debt, the benefits were too great to refuse. Everyone here dreamt of earning the acknowledgement of the ancestors, yet for someone to reject it. Even though there's a sliver of the corresponding ancestors will sealed within each of the tablets, it contains their spirit. Being rejected by their descendant, naturally, they'll cry in sorrow. It's under such a situation that'll induce the rejection of the ancestors, sorrowful chimes of the bell. Even so, I've only read about all of this in books. To think that it was all true. Pavilion Master Kang's face paled. More importantly, for so many ancestral tablets to cry sorrowfully at the same moment. It means that all of these ancestors have acknowledged a person at the same time, but all of them were rejected. Acknowledgement. By all of these ancestors? How is this possible? The crowd was completely astonished. Some of them even nearly fainted on the spot. In the past 100 years, even the most talented genius of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance for the past several hundred years, Jun Rohuan, only obtained the acknowledgement of 7 of the ancestors. Who in the world was this? To obtain the acknowledgement of all of the ancestors at once, and more importantly, to reject all of them as well? Surely I am hearing things? The lips of all of the master teachers quivered, and they fell into a frenzy. Look into it, it must have happened within the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, or else such a phenomenon wouldn't happen here. If we can invite the genius acknowledged by all of the ancestors, we'll surely be able to win. Pavilion Master Kang's eyes shone in excitement. He was just about to continue issuing instructions when the ground suddenly shook. Walala! Then, he saw Kong Shi's statue trembling violently as well, calling out sorrowfully. Kong Shi crying out sorrowfully? Could it be that Kong Shi has been rejected as well? Dumbfounded. Pavilion Master Kang's mouth was wide open, but not a word came out from his mouth. This. Do we really need not bother about this? Seeing Pavilion Master Jiang walk away, Zhang Xian glanced at the ancestral tablets and Kong Shi's statue which was lying under the ruins of the hall doubtfully. Those were the statue of the world's teacher, and the tablets of countless great ancestors. Master teachers have already peered through the essence of the world, and what we value is the intent, not the form. The respect for Kong Shi and the other ancestors lay deep in our hearts, not in these ancestral tablets. Otherwise, given how the falling over of the tablets should have been an extremely disrespectful action, how could we, as descendants, wait expectantly for it to happen? Don't worry, the Master Teacher Pavilion have specialized craftsmen in charge of fixing such damages. It won't take long for the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall to be brought back to its former glory. Pavilion Master Jiang explained. What we value is the intent, not the form. Zhang Xian nodded. Zhang Xian liked the sound of it. The master teachers he knew, be it Lu Ling, Zhuang Xian, or Jiang Shu, never used their position as master teachers to oppress others. Instead, they interacted with others like anyone else, and upon realizing that they had erred, they weren't hesitant to admit their mistakes as well. Instead of their pride, they used their heart and conscience to deal with matters. Knowing that the other party understands that he didn't intentionally break Kong Shi's statue, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Advancing forward, He soon arrived at the conference hall. Allow me to formally introduce you two to them. These two are 4-star master teachers from the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, Su Shi and Ling Shi. After the group settled down, Pavilion Master Jiang introduced. 4-star master teacher? Zhang Xian and Mo Hongyi leaped in shock. They thought that those two were 1-star master teachers who came from other kingdoms. How could have even imagined that they were 4-star master teachers? Especially for Zhang Xian, his face turned green in regret. He had even criticized them earlier. The two of you are talented, and it's just a matter of time before you two become 4-star master teachers, so there's no need to feel so restrained before us. Su Shi chuckled. Then, turning to Zhang Xian, he said, Zhang Shi, I have a presumptuous request to ask of you. Su Shi, feel free to speak. Knowing that the other party was a 4-star master teacher, Zhang Xian immediately clasped his fist respectfully. Not only were 4-star master teachers knowledgeable, their cultivation had also reached a frightening level. To become a 3-star master teacher, one had to possess the strength of minimum Jizun realm. At 4-star, his cultivation must have already surpassed Jizun. I heard that Yang Shi is in the capital, so may I ask if Ling Shi and I can pay a visit to him? Su Shi asked. Pay a visit to Yang Shi? The corner of Zhang Xian's lip twitched, and he nearly fainted on the spot. What Yang Shi? The teacher behind him was Zhang Xian himself. The two 4-star master teachers were interested in meeting Yang Shi. What should he do? It had already taken him a lot of effort to fool Jiang Shu. This time, the other party were 4-star master teachers. It wouldn't be a simple feat to fool them. It was possible that they might even be able to see through his disguising ability. Why? Is it not convenient? Su Shi asked. That isn't the case, just that my teacher has always been wandering around the area. So, even I'm not too sure where he is. Zhang Xian hurriedly added. How about this? I'll ask him of this matter as soon as he appears. I'll be depending on Zhang Shi then. Su Shi smiled. Even though they were both 4-star master teachers, they didn't have any domineering aura to them. Instead, they felt particularly amiable. It was said that the higher ranked a master teacher was, the more they would be like that. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to earn the trust and acknowledgement of their students swiftly, and better impart their knowledge. All right, now that you two are done with your examinations, I won't beat around the bush. Actually, there are 2 reasons why Ling Shi and I are here. Firstly, it's because of Zhang Shi's astonishing examination results, so we came over to take a look. Other than that, we have something that we might need your help on. Upon seeing Zhang Xian agree to the matter, Su Shi stroked his beard and spoke of the primary reason for their arrival. Su Shi, feel free to speak. If it's within the abilities of Tianwu Kingdom's Master Teacher Pavilion, we'll definitely give it our all, Pavilion Master Jiang said. Putting aside the fact that the other party was his superior, the other party's rank as a 4-star Master Teacher made him more than qualified to command them. Chapter 399, Above the Alliance. I won't stand on formalities then. Hesitating for a moment, Su Shi started explaining. I believe you all should have at least heard a little about the standing of our Myriad Kingdom Alliance in the continent. Having read through books, Zhang Xian knew that due to the influence of the Master Teachers, this continent was known as Master Teacher Continent. It was a huge continent that seemed boundless, in which there were countless kingdoms, sects, and individual influences scattered all over. The Myriad Kingdom Alliance might be the strongest existence in this region, but when placed against the entire Master Teacher Continent, it didn't amount to anything much. Seeing the confusion in the eyes of many Master Teachers here, Su Shi shook his head. I guess that even if you all know a little about it, your knowledge is probably incomplete. Allow me to explain more then. I'm sure you all should be well aware of the ranking system of the kingdoms. There is a total of 4 ranks, unranked, Tier 2, Tier 1, and conferred. Your Tianwu Kingdom is a Tier 1 kingdom, and it is considered as a vassal to conferred Xianyuan Kingdom. And there are 142 kingdoms of Xianyuan Kingdom's level under the jurisdiction of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. So many? Zhang Xian was taken aback. The map he saw was only at the level of a Tier 1 kingdom. As such, he wasn't too sure about the conditions of the conferred kingdoms. Initially, he thought that the Myriad Kingdom Alliance was just a name, but at this moment, he realized that the number of countries within it had to be at least 10,000. There were 142 conferred kingdoms, and Xianyuan Kingdom had 20 Tier 1 kingdoms like Tianwu under its jurisdiction, and then going down further. The total quantity numbered so many that it was hard to calculate on the spot. That's right. The presence of the Master Teacher Pavilion and various historical circumstances formed the present situation, but I won't touch on that for now. For now, I'll focus on the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. The Myriad Kingdom Alliance governs all of the kingdoms within a certain boundary, and even though it sounds like a massive organization, but compared to the scale of the Master Teacher continent, it is actually just an insignificant droplet within a vast ocean. There are several thousands of similar powers in the entire continent, such as the neighboring Ningxia Empire, Hanhai Empire. There are also some powerful third-rate sects such as the Cascading Sand Sect and Frigid Gale Sect. There are so many similar existences to the Myriad Kingdom Alliance? Everyone was shocked. They knew that the Master Teacher continent was vast, but they didn't expect it to be of such a scale. In their eyes, an existence that gathered over 10,000 kingdoms was already a mammoth. How could they possibly fathom that there were several thousands of such influences scattered throughout the continent? Just the thought of it was fearsome. Myriad Kingdom Alliance might sound domineering, but as the kingdoms within are autonomous and there's lack of connection between each of them, it's actually one of the weakest among similar influences. Take Ningxia Empire for example. Regardless of whether it's the number of experts they have or their economy, they are way superior to us. Luyun sect and Luosha sect are also filled with outstanding geniuses, and their strength far surpasses ours. But of course, these influential powers also have Master Teacher Pavilions within them, and they're under the jurisdiction of a headquarter. In order to better select talents to groom and glorify Master Teachers, the Myriad Kingdom Alliance and 26 other similar influences cooperate together to conduct a Master Teacher tournament. It's conducted once every decade, and all Master Teachers under 20 are allowed to participate. The winner will be entitled to generous rewards. This tournament has been conducted 77 times already, but it's a pity that the Myriad Kingdom Alliance has continued to hover around the bottom. Even at best, we only reached the 23rd place. At this point, Su Shi's face flushed in embarrassment. Of 27 similarly influential powers, their best placing was only at 23rd place, or 5th from the bottom. It was no wonder why he felt embarrassed. This time, the newly appointed Pavilion Master Kong has decided to make some changes and strive for better results. He instructed for the personnel of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Master Teacher Pavilion to pay attention to the other kingdoms, and pick out talented individuals to groom for the tournament that would be held 3 months later. Su Shi stared at Zhang Xian expectantly. Su Shi means that, you wish to ask Zhang Shi to join this tournament? Pavilion Master Jiang came to a realization. That's right. Su Shi nodded. Despite his young age, Zhang Shi has broken many records of the Master Teacher Pavilion. Even within the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, there is probably none who can match his talents. Thus, I would like to formally invite him to participate in the tournament. This. Not expecting the other party to ask such a request, Pavilion Master Jiang instinctively turned to look at Zhang Xian. The gazes of the other Master Teachers focused on Zhang Xian as well. It was Zhang Xian's personal decision to choose whether he wanted to participate or not. No one could force him into it. This. Zhang Xian was also stunned by the sudden request. Zhang Shi, there's no need for you to rush to answer the question. You have 2 days to consider this matter and discuss it with your teacher. You can answer me once you've made up your mind, Su Shi said. All right, then I'll give it some thought. Zhang Xian nodded. Zhang Xian had never even heard of the Master Teacher Tournament, and he had no idea what form the tournament would be in. As such, he felt that he should be more prudent with this matter. His primary focus at the moment was to become a 9-star Master Teacher before 30. Everything else was of secondary concern. All right, this is all I have. Zhang Shi, I'll be troubling you to on Yang Shi's matter then. Ling Shi and I are truly interested in meeting your teacher. Su Shi chuckled. Given how the other party was able to groom a talent of Zhang Xian's caliber, his means could only be greater than theirs. Since they were here, it was a breach of etiquette to not pay respects to their senior. Once teacher returns, I'll immediately report to the two elders. Seeing that the other party hadn't forgotten this matter, Zhang Xian felt his head hurt. Seeing the serious expressions on these two four-star master teachers, Zhang Xian knew that it was impossible for him to avoid this affair. Just that, disguising before four-star master teachers. Honestly speaking, Zhang Xian had no confidence at all. If there's no other instructions, I'll be taking my leave first then. Seeing that there was nothing else, Zhang Xian clasped his fist. Farewell! The others nodded. Since the two-star master teacher examination and inauguration were over, it was about time for Zhang Xian to return back to his residence to meet his students. Zhang Xian had disguised himself a little after reaching the capital, so he hadn't really walked around the city in his original appearance yet. Walking out of the conference hall, he saw Mu Xueqing, Lu Chong, and his other students from Tianwu Academy walking up to him. Teacher! Their eyes were filled with admiration. They thought that their teacher was only an ordinary teacher. Who could have thought that he was the great genius whose name echoed throughout the entire capital, Zhang Xian? They couldn't help but feel proud to have such an esteemed teacher. Teacher! Zhao Ye and the others walked over, but in comparison to the excitement from the other groups, their heads were lowered as though a rooster who had lost a duel. This was especially for Xingyang and Yuan Tao. As though a rat meeting with a cat, they trembled fearfully. See how I'll teach you all a lesson once we return to the residence. This was the master teacher pavilion, and there were many eyes here. If outsiders were to learn that his own student tried to do him in, they would definitely laugh their teeth out. The prestige he had just earned from becoming a two-star master teacher would also crumble in an instant. Such family scandals should be dealt with behind closed doors. He was determined to teach these arrogant brats a lesson once they returned to the residence. You all should follow me as well. Glancing at Mu Xueqing, Lu Chong, and the others, Zhang Xian gestured. Since his two identities had converged together, it was time for him to do some reorganization and end the relationships that needed to be ended. Yes. The crowd nodded, and they followed behind Zhang Xian. Returning to the residence, Lu Shi, Bai Chan, and the others had already heard of the news. They hurried forward to welcome Zhang Xian's return, and admiration glittered in their eyes. Reaching the main hall, Zhang Xian sat at the top seat as he glanced at the kneeling Xingyang, Yuan Tao, and the others below with a steeled face. As soon as he arrived, the group immediately explained the matter of the poison. Regardless of who Lu Laoshi is, even if he isn't me, as a teacher you should show him the basic respect he deserves. To poison him because of a small contention, how dare you all! Zhang Xian bellowed. These few fellows had indeed gone too far this time. He was embarrassed by their act of poisoning him, but what truly made him furious was the lack of values in their actions. They disregarded the honor of a teacher and overstepped their moral boundaries. Once a person loses his values, then no matter how strong he became, he could only be a scum. As a teacher, what he should impart wasn't just knowledge, but morals and values as well. It was just like grooming a flower. It didn't just consist of watering and adding fertilizer, one also had to trim its branches from time to time. Otherwise, as its branches started to twist and turn, it would lose its aesthetics. Teacher, we don't dare anymore. Seeing their teacher fly to a rage, Xingyang and the others paled in fright. Don't dare anymore? You all even dared to make a move on me, what else wouldn't you all dare to do? I, Zhang Xian, don't have a student like you all, and I am not fitting to be your teacher. Flinging his sleeves, Zhang Xian harumphed coldly. Teacher. Xingyang and their bodies swayed. This meant that Zhang Xian was expelling them from his tutelage. Teacher, I beg of you to take back your orders. Xingyang and the others didn't do it intentionally. Zhao Ye rushed forward and pleaded with Zhang Xian. Don't plead for them, leave them kneeling. We'll talk about it once they finally think it through. After bellowing at Jing Yang and the others, Zhang Xian turned his attention to Mu Xueqing and his other students. It's under my identity as Lu Qing that fate brought us together as teacher and students. However, now that I'm reverting back to my original identity, our fate has come to an end. I'll leave you all with cultivation techniques that will allow you all to reach Songsha realm, so you all should return for now. Zhang Xian's connection with these students was only through Tianwu Academy. Now that he had come to the end of his mission, it was time for their relationship to come to an end. Other than that, Tianwu Kingdom was still way too small for him. It was just a matter of time before he'd leave. Taking care of Zhaoye and the others was already difficult for him. He couldn't possibly bring an entire class around. Teacher. The eyes of Mu Xueqing, Meng Tao, and the others reddened. All right, there's no banquet that doesn't end. Even if you all aren't my students, you all must cultivate diligently. After issuing them one last instruction, Zhang Xian waved his hands. You all should go now. Yes. The group kneeled down and kowtowed together once. Teacher, I would like to follow you. I'll go wherever you go. Mu Xueqing gritted her teeth in determination. You are the sole daughter of Apothecary Mu. If you leave, who will take care of him? You should return. Zhang Xian waved his hand. Mu Xueqing was tongue-tied. She had lost her mother at a young age, and her father went through a lot of trouble to raise her. If she were to leave, what would happen to her father? If you still wish to follow me in the future, you can first settle the matter with Apothecary Mu before looking for me. Don't worry, as a master teacher, it won't be hard for you to track me down. Zhang Xian smiled. Yes. Teacher, thank you for your tutelage over the past few days. Upon coming to terms with the matter, Mu Xueqing bent down and kowtowed deeply several times. Zhang Xian nodded. Just as he was about to speak, his head suddenly jolted. A bookshelf trembled, and the golden book appeared once more. Chapter 400 Elder? Another page? Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. He had gone through a lot of trouble to teach Mu Xueqing, even going to the extent of imparting the Heaven's Path saber art to her. Even so, he didn't really expect to earn the other party's earnest gratitude and form a new golden page. Zhang Xian had no idea what other effects there were to this book of Heaven's Path, but its ability to raise Zhang Xian's soul depth easily and assimilate the contents of the books gathered in the library of Heaven's Path into his knowledge already made it a priceless treasure. Teacher, regardless of where you go, I'll definitely look for you. Making a vow in her heart, Mu Xueqing led the crowd away. The room soon chilled down with their departure. However, Lu Chong remained in the room, and he stood on the spot impassively. You! Zhang Xian was about to speak, but the other party interrupted him. Teacher, I have nothing to tie me down here anymore. Wherever you go, I'll follow you. Lu Chang's eyes reflected his determination. After a long moment of hesitation, Zhang Xian nodded. All right. Zhang Xian was well aware of the character of this student of his. Knowing that there was no use persuading him, he eventually relented. After dealing with that, Zhang Xian walked out of the room. At that moment, Lu Shi stepped forward with a worried frown. Are you going to keep them kneeling? Xingyang, Yuan Tao, Wang Ying, and his other students were still kneeling motionlessly in the main hall. Did he intend to keep them kneeling like that? Their cultivation has progressed too quickly, and this has added to their complacency. Making them kneel will help build their characters so that they won't act so rashly in the future, Zhang Xian said. Actually, Zhang Xian's rage had already died down. The poisoning incident didn't cause much harm, and his students already knew their mistakes. However, he still chose to neglect them and keep them kneeling. The reason for it was simple: he wanted to build their character. Only with a strong character will they be able to reach greater heights in the future. Taking Lu Chong for example, the tragedy in his clan had made his mental fortitude as tough as steel. Even though his cultivation had progressed swiftly in the past few days, he didn't show the slightest arrogance or complacency. On the other hand, Xingyang, Yuan Tao, Wang Ying, and the others were entitled to the best education from the very start, and they have never faced any major problems in their cultivation before. Zhang Xian thought that it was about time to teach them the difficulty of cultivating so that they wouldn't get complacent. That's good. I've neglected this matter. Lu Shi nodded. At this moment, he truly felt impressed by this senior of his. When he first met his senior, he thought that he was still slightly immature in his actions. However, at this moment, he already possessed on the disposition of a teacher, and every single action he took aligned with his duties as a teacher. As a teacher, one shouldn't just focus all of one's efforts on the cultivation of one's student, one must also reinforce their mental fortitude. Using building a palace as an analogy, one's mental fortitude would be like the foundation of the construction. Without the foundation, no matter how many bricks one laid on top and what kind of technologies one utilized, there would still be a limit to its final height. On top of that, it would be unable to weather the winds of a storm as well. Zhang Xian made use of this matter to sternly punish the others, but the truth was that he was trying to grind their will. Without a bone-piercing chill, how could there be the fragrance of the plum blossoms? I just hope that they can understand your efforts. Lu Shi sighed. Sometimes, students were unable to understand why their teachers were so harsh on them, and this incited a rebellious streak in them. By the time a falling out occurred, it was already too late for regrets. Zhang Xian nodded. After chatting with Lu Shi for a moment longer, he walked out of the residence and settled some other miscellaneous matters. The great Herb King and Liao Sun had already left the capital. The Ji clan had sent many generous gifts in apology, and Zhang Xian kept them all in his storage ring. In truth, the matter with Ji clan wasn't anything much, and there was nothing for Zhang Xian to pursue. By the time Zhang Xian had settled everything, it was already late at night. The next day, he went to the Physician Guild and swept through all of the books in their library. He went on to do the same for the other guilds in the kingdom, storing them inside the Library of Heaven's Path. He busied himself throughout the day, and only upon sunset did he return to the residence. Time to begin! With a thought, the golden book appeared right before Zhang Xian. The two 4-star master teachers had specifically brought up their desire to meet Zhang Xian before him, and dragging the matter out wasn't a solution. If Zhang Xian didn't want to be exposed by the other party, he had to accrue a huge mountain of knowledge to make up for his lack thereof. In any case, he had 2 golden pages now, so using one wasn't too much of a heartache. Assimilate. Boom! As soon as the thought appeared in his mind, a violent buzz sounded. The golden page radiated a bright glow, and all of the books in the Library of Heaven's Path immediately started infusing their contents into his head. Unable to withstand the huge surge of information, Zhang Xian's vision turned dark and he fainted. In the Physician Guild, Physician Qing Feng stared helplessly at the unconscious physician Wu Hong lying on the floor. This ex-guild leader had gone to the Lin clan to cure the other party of their poison, but not only did he fail to resolve their poison, he even got afflicted with it. For a 3-star physician to land himself in such a state, it was indeed shameful. Physician Cheng Feng, is there any way to cure him? Physician Mu Hong's student, 2-star physician Xie Shunda, looked at Cheng Feng nervously. Physician Cheng Feng shook his head. I've tried all methods, but the poison he's afflicted with is simply too formidable. I am also helpless before it. He had carefully examined this poison, and he realized that it was able to fuse easily with all Jinqi. This problem had left him completely stumped. Unless? Xie Shunda's face tensed up. Unless guild leader Lu, or rather Zhang Shi, treats him personally. Given how he was able to solve so many problems on the Wall of Dilemma, his aptitude for the way of medicine is truly frightening. This poison is formidable, but he might have a solution for it, Physician Cheng Feng said. Zhang Xian. Upon hearing this name, Xie Shunda's face immediately sank, and he howled deeply. His student is the one who planted the poison. He must have been in cahoots with the master of the poison hall. Back then, he had clearly seen how Hall Master Liao treated Zhang Shi so respectfully that it seemed as though the latter was his own father. During the period when Physician Wu Hong was afflicted with lethal poison, the master of the poison hall appeared in the city. It was hard to believe that there wasn't any correlation between the two. Audacious! Such words cannot be spouted without evidence. Physician Cheng Feng berated sternly. Zhang Shi is a master teacher and a grandmaster physician. How can he be in cahoots with the poison hall? Without evidence? Humph, so many people have seen it with their own eyes. Xie Shunda harumphed coldly. What wall of dilemma and guild leader, Pui? How can someone who has dealings with the poison hall be worthy to serve as the leader of our physician guild? In fact, I think that he might not even know medicine at all. He might have prepared the answers to the problems on the wall of dilemma beforehand. Otherwise, how could he solve so many problems within such a short period of time? Seeing his own teacher lying in a coma on the floor, Xie Shunda couldn't hold back his rage anymore, and he bellowed furiously. Every single one of those questions on the wall of dilemma was extremely difficult. Even if Zhang Xian were to start learning from the womb, given how he wasn't even 20 yet, how much could he learn? Clearly, someone had given him the answers beforehand, and all he had to do was to copy them down. Otherwise, given how skilled he was, why hadn't he treated anyone before? It's worth noting that the issue with the guardian beast is a state secret, so not many people know of it. This. Physician Cheng Feng hesitated. Back then, when Zhang Shi came to the physician guild, he was also present. The fact that the other party could solve 19 questions on the wall of dilemma despite being ignorant of basic common knowledge already made the entire incident rather doubtful. Speaking of which, Physician Cheng Feng also held his suspicions. This kind of person is unworthy of being the master of our physician guild. I hope that Physician Cheng Feng can host a meeting with the elders to strip that fellow of his position as the guild leader so that he can't go around fooling others. Halfway through Xie Shunda's incitement, a middle-aged man rushed into the room. As soon as he entered, the middle-aged man shouted excitedly, Physician Cheng Feng and Physician Xie Shunda, there's a response on the wall of dilemma. There's a response? Did he get the final question wrong? Xie Shunda's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly turned his gaze to the middle-aged man. A few days ago, Zhang Shi provided the solutions for 20 difficult illnesses in a row. However, the other side of the wall of dilemma had been unable to give an accurate judgment on the final answer he provided. Initially, it said that it would take 10 days for it to assess the validity of the answer. However, the headquarters seemed to have operated more efficiently than it expected, and it had already given a reply today. Wrong? The middle-aged man froze for a moment before hurriedly shaking his head. It doesn't mention whether it's wrong or not. Doesn't mention? The two physicians were stunned. Since the headquarters had given its reply, it should have already come to a verdict on the validity of Zhang Shi's answer. What did he mean by saying it wasn't mentioned? Then, what's written on it? Xie Shunda couldn't help but ask. The middle-aged man hesitated for a moment before replying. It says that it'll confer Lu Qing as an elder of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Physician Guild, and as for his exact ranking, a test will be conducted when his cultivation reaches a certain level. Confer him as an elder of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Physician Guild? Physician Cheng Feng and Physician Xie Shunda glanced at one another, and their bodies trembled. Blood nearly spurted out of their mouths. The heck, what was going on? The Myriad Kingdom Alliance, that was a top-notch existence that stood even above the conferred kingdoms. The elders of the Physician Guild there were at minimum 4-star. Conferring Lu Qing as their elder? At this moment, Xie Shunda could only feel a piercing heat on his face, and it felt as though someone had slapped him forcefully. He had just said that the other party was unworthy of being their guild leader, and the next moment, the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Physician Guild sent a message indicating their interest in having him as an elder of their guild. The heck? You must be doing this on purpose. Xie Shunda's face turned scarlet, and he nearly cried on the spot. There was a peculiar room in the Tianwu Kingdom Master Teacher Pavilion where a snowy white wall towered. Communication wall. At this moment, Su Shi, Ling Shi, and Pavilion Master Jiang was standing in front of the wall. Reporting to Su Shi, Ling Shi, and Pavilion Master Jiang, the reparations of the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall are completed. Elder Zhu walked in and clasped his fist. Good! Pavilion Master Jiang heaved a sigh of relief. The sudden shaking of Kong Shi's statue and the fall of innumerable ancestral tablets. Such a matter has never occurred before. Ling Shi, do you have any idea what happened then? Su Shi frowned. That day, they were all present on the spot. Kong Shi suddenly fell, resulting in violent tremors throughout the hall. Even until now, they were still unable to make sense out of the incident. They had considered the possibility of Zhang Shi winning the acknowledgement of all of the ancestors, but eventually, they shook their heads in denial. That was Kong Shi's statue. His lingering will was infused in it. How could it possibly acknowledge anyone easily? Rumor had it that there was once a 9-star master teacher who tried to acknowledge Kong Shi as his teacher, only to be rejected. To reject a 9-star master teacher and take in a 2-star master teacher instead? You must be jesting. Not yet! Ling Shi couldn't comprehend the situation either. Shaking his head, he picked up a brush and smiled. However, there's no need to worry. I intend to ask the headquarter now. Even though we don't understand the situation, the guild leader and the other elders might know a thing or two. Hurry up. Su Shi nodded. Just as Ling Shi was considering how he should phrase his words, the massive wall before them suddenly lit up, and a row of words appeared. Rejection of the ancestors, sorrowful chimes of the bell. Someone in the Myriad King Alliance has refused the acknowledgement of the ancestors after passing the Master Teacher examination. If the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall of any branch has collapsed, report swiftly. Teacher Acknowledgement Hall collapsed? Su Shi, Ling Shi, Pavilion Master Jiang, and Elder Zhu were dumbstruck. Chapter 401. Paying respects to Yang Shi. Someone had rejected the acknowledgement of the ancestors after passing the Master Teacher examination? You must be pulling my leg. Is there such an insane figure in the world? Winning the acknowledgement of a senior is a huge blessing. Reject? Who in the world is it? After a moment of daze, Pavilion Master Jiang nearly went insane. Mo Hongyi's feat of winning the acknowledgement from a single ancestor had already broken the record of Tianwu Kingdom for the past 300 years, and it had incited a wave of excitement within the Master Teacher Pavilion. Pavilion Master Jiang also felt honored. He would be able to keep his head up in the other Master Teacher Pavilions of the other kingdoms in the future. Yet, for someone to reject the ancestors' acknowledgement. It was fortunate that Mo Hongyi wasn't around. If he were to learn of this news, wouldn't he spew blood and faint on the spot? That's impossible! Su Shi and Ling Shi were perplexed as well. The acknowledgement from the ancestors would grant one with a unique aura that would raise one's soul depth swiftly. There wasn't a single master teacher who could reject such a benefit. Wait. The headquarters said that if there's a teacher acknowledgement hall of any branch has collapsed, report swiftly. The teacher acknowledgement hall here has collapsed. Ling Shi was the first to realize this matter, and his face tensed. They didn't know what rejection of the ancestors, sorrowful chimes of the bell meant, but since the headquarter had asked about the collapsing of the teacher acknowledgement hall, it wasn't difficult for them to deduce the matter. The headquarter wasn't so idle as to do unnecessary things. Since they asked about the collapsing of the teacher acknowledgement hall, it must have something to do with these 9 words. You mean that the person who rejected the acknowledgement of the ancestors might be in this guild? Su Shi's eyes widened, and his voice sounded a little hoarse. In the past few days, only Mo Shi and Zhang Shi had passed the examinations. The former had managed to win the acknowledgement of one elder, while the latter caused Kong Shi's statue to fall over and the entire teacher acknowledgement hall to collapse. Even though the entire incident was bewildering, they didn't see him reject the ancestors. Let's ask about it. Confused, Ling Shi dabbed the brush in ink and wrote, What does rejection of the ancestors, sorrowful chimes of the bell mean? 1. The words disappeared, and not too long later, a radiance flashed, and another line of words appeared on the communication wall. Not absorbing the unique aura granted by the ancestors, rejecting their goodwill. Upon realization, the group shuddered once more. To reject the ancestors and induce their sorrowful cries. How incredible must a figure be to do such stuff? They stared at one another in shock, bewildered over who had that kind of guts that do such a thing. At that moment, the wall before them shone once more, and a few more line of words appeared. 2 days ago, at Shu hour 1, he rejected the acknowledgement of all of the ancestors and Kong Shi, resulting in the shaking of the statue. Under such circumstances, it's highly possible for the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall to collapse. If there's the shaking of the Kong Shi statue or the collapsing of the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall in any branch, report swiftly. 2 days ago, at Shu hour. That seems to be around the timing when Zhang Shi is seeking acknowledgement from the elders. Su Shi trembled. Indeed! The trembling of the statue and the collapsing of the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall. Could the one who incited the sorrowful cries of the ancestors be Zhang Shi? Ling Shi's body swayed vigorously. He was just thinking which incredible figure it could be, when it turned out to be the fellow just around them. Are you for real? It should be true. Upon thinking of something, Pavilion Master Jiang smiled bitterly. Oh? Hearing Pavilion Master Jiang affirm the matter, the 2 4-star master teacher turned to look at him. A similar situation happened 2 days ago. The ancestral tablets of the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall trembled, and Kong Shi's statue moved as well. After pondering for a moment, Pavilion Master Jiang explained the situation that happened 2 days ago. The trembling of myriad tokens. Celestial Master Teacher? Trembling of Kong Shi, this is. Kong Shi admits a disciple, the student of the sage? But more importantly, he was rejected? Su Shi and Ling Shi was on the verge of going insane. It was one thing to reject the acknowledgement of the ancestors, but to reject an offer to become Kong Shi's student. Since it happened here, it was clear that it was the doing of a genius in the guild. In that instant, a figure appeared in their minds. Zhang Xian! It must be him! With quivering lips, Su Shi jumped up in agitation. Celestial Master Teacher, an existence whom even Kong Shi wanted as his student. Initially, they thought that all they would find was a slightly more capable genius. Never in the dreams did they expect that they would find such a formidable figure whose feats exceeded their imagination. Hurry up and inform the headquarter. Have the Pavilion Master welcome him personally. Ling Shi excitedly picked up the brush and prepared to write on it. Putting aside Kong Shi's intent to take him in, just the fact that Zhang Xian was a celestial master teacher already made him an existence worthy of the Pavilion Master to invite over personally. Of the entire continent, only Kong Shi had managed to become a celestial master teacher. Other than him, no one had ever achieved that feat. Ling Shi, wait a moment. Jiang Shu hurriedly stopped him. What's wrong? Frowning, Ling Shi turned to look at Jiang Shu. The matter of celestial master teacher is too big. I'm afraid that it might bring calamity to Zhang Shi if the matter were to leak out. Besides, Kong Shi being rejected isn't a glorious affair. I've already ordered the others to keep quiet on the matter, but if the news were to leak in the headquarters, Pavilion Master Jiang explained. Even though the Master Teacher Pavilion possessed overwhelming authority in the continent, they still had many hidden enemies. Besides, given that the Master Teacher tournament was going to be held, if other powers were to learn of the existence of such a formidable genius, they might be tempted to poach him, or even cut him off before he grows. It was better to proceed prudently. Pavilion Master Jiang is right. We should report this matter straight on to the Pavilion Master alone. The fewer people who knows of it, the better it is. Su Shi nodded grimly in agreement to Jiang Shu's words. On. At this moment, Ling Shi also recovered from his agitation and nodded. He then wrote on the wall. None. Since they decided not to speak of this matter on the communication wall, they could only reply like this for now. Celestial Master Teacher, and on top of that, a person who nearly became Kong Shi's student. It's one thing if we didn't know, but once we know, we should pay him a visit regardless of the cost. After replying to the headquarters, Su Shi and Ling Shi could no longer suppress their agitation in their hearts. They might be 4-star master teachers, but as compared to a celestial master teacher, they were way too lacking. They had only earned the acknowledgement of the ancestors, but the other party earned the acknowledgement of the heavens. The gap between them couldn't be summarized with just the single word large. As long as he survived, he would most probably reach the pinnacle of this world. We must pay a visit to Zhang Shi eventually, but the first person we should meet is Yang Shi, Su Shi replied grimly. To be capable of grooming a celestial master teacher, and more importantly, have his own student reject even Kong Shi, how fearsome must this Yang Shi be? If we were to listen to even a word of his guidance, we might be able to take a huge step forward in our cultivation. At this time, Ling Shi also came to the same conclusion, and he nodded in agreement. One could have a lot of teachers in their life. But there were some who have decided to only acknowledge one teacher in their entire life. It was just like Kong Shi's students. Even if they wanted to acknowledge others as their teacher, no one would dare to accept them. For Yang Shi, Zhang Shi was willing to even reject Kong Shi. How fearsome could this young Xian be? Let's go! Without any hesitation, the two four-star master teachers swiftly headed for Zhang Xian's residence. In the past few days, Mo Hongyi had been in a good mood. Ever since that Zhang Xian fellow's appearance, his records had been beaten one after another, and his title as the number one genius had been usurped. Since he wasn't as capable as the other party, he could only work diligently in hopes of overtaking him in the future. And his efforts paid off. 2 days ago, he was acknowledged by the ancestors, and he managed to triumph over Zhang Xian for once. With this, he had broken the record of the Master Teacher Pavilion for the past 300 years. Wasn't that Zhang Xian a genius? Wasn't he formidable? But so what? Zhang Xian still ended up being acknowledged by none of the ancestors at all. In the end, he was still the ultimate victor. A slight smile curved onto Mo Hongyi's lips. The refusal of the ancestors to acknowledge him meant that he had come to the limits of his potential, and his future achievements were limited. He had heard of many geniuses who shone brightly when they were younger, only to end up just like anyone else in the future. This Zhang Xian was probably still the same as well. So what if he was a genius? Potential was the key. I should look for Su Shi and Ling Shi, and see if they are willing to take me in as their student. If they really take me in, I would surely be able to surpass Zhang Xian soon. Tidying up his clothes, a streak of excitement flashed across his eyes. Ever since Pavilion Master Jiang introduced Su Shi and Ling Shi to him, the intention to take one of them as his teacher had sprouted in his mind. If he succeeded, a whole new world would open before him. Mo Shi, my apologies, but Su Shi and Ling Shi have already left this morning. Mo Hongyi looked around the Master Teacher Pavilion, but he couldn't find the duo. In the end, after asking around about the matter, he met with Pavilion Master Jiang. Left? Where did they go to? Mo Hongyi asked. Oh, they went to Zhang Shi's residence. Pavilion Master Jiang replied. Thank you. Upon learning of their whereabouts, Mo Hongyi nodded and left. I need to hurry. It was very possible that Zhang Xian might have the same thoughts as him. How could he give this good opportunity away to that fellow? He had surpassed the other party in the acknowledgement of the ancestors, and this was a good omen. As long as he worked hard, he would surely be able to surpass the other party's records. Zhang Xian's residence wasn't too far away from the Master Teacher Pavilion. It didn't take too long for Mo Hongyi to arrive at his destination. Turning around the streets, he suddenly caught sight of two figures and hurriedly stopped. That is Su Shi and Ling Shi? The two master teachers were standing quietly in front of Zhang Xian's residence with a respectful look. Didn't they head here early in the morning? Why were they still standing at the doorstep? More importantly, that respectful attitude, what in the world was that? They were 4-star master teachers, the respected elders of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Master Teacher Pavilion. Even if the Emperor of Xianyuan Kingdom were to come, he would have to welcome them subserviently. Yet, at this moment, they seemed no different from anxious students. Mo Hongyi blinked his eyes in disbelief. Jia! Just as he was still in the midst of his shock, the gates to the courtyard opened, and a plump man walked out. He spoke casually. The old master has just returned, and he has asked for you two to enter. I'll just say this in advance, the old master doesn't like a ruckus, so try to maintain silence after you enter. Yes. Don't worry, we'll definitely keep quiet. Su Shi and Ling Shi hurriedly nodded. All right, then let's go. Waving casually, the plump man led the way. The two master teachers hurriedly followed behind. The heck? And Mo Hung's eyes were about to fall to the floor. What in the world is going on? To think that 4-star master teachers would still have to request for a meeting. On top of that, to wait an entire morning for it? And that butler's casual attitude, almost to the point of being rude. Wasn't he afraid of being smacked to death? And Mo Hung's mouth twitched violently, and he felt as though the entire world had gone wrong. 1. Shu hour is from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.